I mentioned earlier, if you have cell phones, to please either turn them off or put them in silent mode. Also, for anyone who is wishing to testify this evening on any of the items on the agenda, there are sign-up sheets to the table to my right. Even if you don't sign your name, you will still have the opportunity to come up and testify. You do not need to sign up to do so. We also have someone via Zoom that will be testifying. Again, welcome, especially to the newer members of this committee, Alder Martinelli as well as Alder Moore. Welcome to CSEP. I also want to recognize for the record that our majority leader was here, and we always appreciate that. And also the Alder from Ward 13, Mildred Melendez. Thank you for being here this evening. This is how it works. We will call up the first item. After each item is done presenting and being questioned by committee members, we will take public testimony. And public testimony will be open until after the workshop as well. So we will not be closing that portion of this meeting. At this time, I welcome the makers for item number 1. So Attorney Cohen, I see you. And anyone else related to this item, please come forward. One other thing while they're coming forward is if you wish to testify or anyone that is speaking to speak into the microphone, you don't need to be really close to it. So you could stay back a little bit. We also ask that you state your name and address for the record. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair Festa, honorable members of the City Services and Environmental Policy Committee. My name is Carolyn Cohen. Council.
You can actually bring the mic a little closer so everyone can hear you.
Sound better? Yes. My name is Carolyn Cohn. I live at 131 West Park Avenue in New Haven. I'm a partner of Brenner Saltzman and Wallman, and our offices are at 271 Whitney Avenue in New Haven. And I will pass these out to you. Sure. That'd be great. Sure.
So for the record, my name is Gus Keach Longo. I live at 11 Highwood Road in Bloomfield.
And my name is Doe Feinmesser. I live at 25 Colette Street in North Haven.
Great, thank you. Do you have a presentation on the screen or just this one? Both. Okay.
Oh,
It's the same presentation.
Okay, we could start.
Just start. Okay. So before you this evening is a request to allow the city of New Haven to lease 3 ancient easements. And these easements range in age between 57 years and 45 years. The purpose of the release of these easements is to allow the towers to construct a brand new 3rd tower because there is such a demand for low and moderate income housing with supportive services for the elderly in New Haven. So we thought with our presentation will be Mr. Gus Keach Longo will speak a little bit about the towers and how that works. And then our architect, Doug Feinmeister, will talk about the plans for Tower 3. And then I'll come back and explain the history of these 3 easements and why we need them released. So I think we turn this over to Gus first, and he the slides that you have in front of you.
Thank you for having us. So I'm Gus Keach Longo, the president and CEO of the towers. And if we go to the next slide, you can see the pictures of the 2 buildings. The gray taller building is Tower 1. We actually were opened in 1971, and that is 21 stories tall. Tower East is the red brick building, and that is 13 stories tall, opened in 1982. Our campus is about 4.45 acres. Next slide, talking about the tower's apartments, we have 328 units, of which 178 are in Tower 1 and 150 are in Tower East. Back in the 2000s and 2010s, we converted 130 of those apartments to what is called assisted living. which primarily means that they are equipped to be able to take care of someone and provide care. So roll-in showers, grab bars, more accessible and such. 73% of our folks are 50% of the area median income or lower, and we have 27%, which is what we call the forgotten middle. Those are people who have too much income to be subsidized, but not enough income to pay for traditional assisted living. So we have 85 apartments that are for people who fit into this donut hole, so to speak. And that's very important because they don't have options to go somewhere else. Right now, we're working on a project to convert 40 apartments to assisted living because we need to be able to provide more care in our building as our needs have changed. And of the ones we're working on, 36 out of the 40 units are at 30% of the area median income or lower. The next slide, our average age is slightly below 80 years old. Right now, we have at least identified about 26 folks who have absolutely no family. We are their family, and we're proud of that. When you look at our folks, as we do our assessments and such, about 219 of them are either qualified to live in a nursing home or about to be qualified to live in a nursing home, meaning that they need one more need in order for them to be qualified to live in an institutional setting. So 67% of our folks do need help with some form of activity of daily living, which usually means helping with showers, medication management, getting dressed in the morning. And our average income is slightly below $2,000 per month. And our average length of stay is about 4.7 years. Most places of assisted living that provide assisted living services, their actual length of stay is only 18 months. We take care of people proactively and for a longer period of time. Breaking this down just a little bit further, our Towers residents, 107 of them are actually nursing home eligible and receive services through the fact that they would be able to be in a nursing home. 112 of them are about to be nursing home eligible. 99 cannot manage their medications on their own. The average person is receiving 26 hours of care per week. At any given time, we have about 6 people who are on hospice, and 21 of our folks have 24-hour care in the building. So just to let you know a little bit about the way that we work, we believe strongly in the concept of aging in place. And we believe in bringing the resources to folks so that they don't have to go to where the care is provided. The care should come and be provided where they live. Our model is that when somebody moves into their apartment, regardless of what happens over time, they should be able to stay in their apartment. Just because their care needs change doesn't mean that they should have to move from one part of the building to another. That's very disruptive. So if someone comes in and they need absolutely no services, but now they need help with showers, we don't believe that they should have to move to another section of the building because now they need showers. So we have an assisted living agency on site, home care, we have a clinic and mental health, physical and occupational therapy, an emergency response system. We provide meals, laundry, housekeeping. And anybody who knows the Towers knows there's always something going on over there. So if there's something to celebrate, we're celebrating it. So if you ever feel lonely, swing on by. We have plenty of things happening. Really quickly, in the sense that we have a ground floor renovation that we just completed this past summer. We were very excited. We had 2 resident spaces on our ground floor, and through the course of a lot of work, we were able to raise the money and design spaces so there are only 10 resident spaces on our ground floor. And the place is always very busy. So this was something we were very proud of. And then our model for housing, we use federal HUD rental subsidies. We have project-based vouchers on site, and we also offer apartments that are considered market rate, that are not subsidized, but we are not for profit. And we believe that it is important that people can afford where they live, so we choose to rent all those apartments slightly below market rate. We also have care and services and care model. We use the Connecticut Home Care Program for Elders as the foundation for our care. It's a Medicaid waiver. We were the ones who created what is called affordable assisted living back in the 90s. In fact, back then, the state of Connecticut was watching what we were doing, taking the Medicaid waiver and marrying it with affordable housing. And the state passed a bill in 1998 to try to replicate that in 4 different areas around the state based off of what we were doing. So it's a model that really works. We use the economies of scale because of our size to be able to keep the costs low. So even when somebody doesn't qualify for state funds, they're able to pay out of pocket, but they pay state rates instead of market rates, which makes it affordable for that missing middle I was talking about. So just as another note, beyond what we do for our residents, we have really good, well-paying, stable jobs. In fact, we just celebrated one of our front desk officers has been there for 20 years. So our folks stay there, many of them, in fact, he lives right here in New Haven. So it's good jobs in the Hill. One of our problems is that we have a long wait list. The typical wait list is about 2 years. Seniors cannot wait that long because oftentimes if they need housing with services, things change. And unfortunately, sometimes they end up going into a nursing home or sometimes they pass on by the time they come to the right part of the waiting list. So we believe that we really need to expand what we're doing and expand our model by building a third tower. And we know that the towers is the best position to be able to do this in our area because we already have the foundation of this model. We also line up very nicely with the New Haven Vision 2034 on goal 7.6, which basically was encouraging and prioritizing projects that combine assisted living, affordable housing with long-term care services and the assisted living program. That is exactly who we are. So at one point, Carolyn asked me if I had written the statement, and I'm just like, I didn't write the statement, but this fits us to a T. So this really is, we're lined up very nicely with that goal. Now, do I do this one or? No. Okay.
No.
I'm
So
listening to what she tells me to do.
I'm glad somebody does.
Actually, while we transition, I just want to recognize our alder from Ward 7, Christine Ken. Thanks for being here.
So as Gus had mentioned, Towers occupies just over 4 acres, and roughly 2 acres of that is currently really used by parking and a small green space for residents. And this offers an opportunity for the type of expansion that Gus had mentioned is really necessary for the towers to keep providing the services that they provide and to grow and expand. And so building on research and work over the last 3 or so years, including a report by HR&A that was a feasibility and cost report, and work by the Yale Urban Design Workshop about the community and the needs in the community, and this sort of vision for talking to the actual towers community about what they'd like to see happen with this third building, or Tower 3. We put together a concept. It's a very early concept of what this might be. And the idea very much revolves around a tower that complements the Knights of Columbus Tower and creates a sort of gateway entry that's visible, from I-95 and 91 along Route 34 and the entry to town. So the idea behind this is really to sort of reparcel the current towers parcels to allow for this development. What you're looking at now, or actually you can't see it on that screen, but if you're following me on your slides, there you go. So basically the red line is showing you the original parcel for Tower 1, and the blue line is showing the original parcel for Tower East. You can see how they wrap around and they're not particularly conducive for a new building. But if we redivide them in such a way that we allow them to maintain their zoning requirements, we can get the gray zone and the green zone, and the green zone allows us a site for a new tower. The idea behind the tower is really focused and revolves around the services that towers provides. So the idea is to provide a podium, a 2-story podium that sort of speaks to the contextual height and nature of the neighborhood. And that podium would contain at the ground level several types of uses. I'll get to that in a moment. The tower itself would be where the main housing would be, and this housing is largely of an affordable nature. So workforce housing, subsidized housing, a few market rate units. That's currently the type of mix that's being discussed. If we look at the plans very diagrammatically, the idea at the ground level is very much to start providing services that the towers need, but also services that the community has expressed desire for. So for example, you'll notice that amongst the services here, childcare is one of the ones listed, and there's a lot of research and a lot of ideas about the integration of childcare and older residents being able to live in shared spaces. And that's part of this idea, the idea that there's a small market so that people who are able to can do sort of small shopping without having to travel very far. and additional small retail uses. And then as you rise to the second story of the podium, and right now we're just focusing for a moment on the building, that podium is basically completely dedicated to services, social services, athletic services, whatever it is that residents need in order to stay healthy and continue maintaining their lives. Green space is not lost on us in this. There's a massive opportunity here for creating a real fantastic space, not just for the residents of Towers, but ultimately for the type of community gatherings that Gus had mentioned. Things are always happening at the Towers, as Gus had said, and it would be great to have a space that can really host those types of events. And so the idea is to create a sort of oasis, as it were, between these towers, nestled between these towers. It has great orientation. It gets a ton of sunlight. It's southern oriented. And, again, we're in very early stages and this hasn't been fully designed, but there's conversation about integrating the childcare outdoor space, about creating maybe terraced space that allows for natural seating. And there is an idea about an opening in this podium of this new building so that there's actually a way for people to travel from South Orange Street across the 18 Tower Lane. So that space that opening remains open and there's a transition that can occur there, especially if there's events happening at Towers, people can arrive from either location. So we're not sort of bottlenecking them along Tower Lane.
And I think it's on the next slide. Okay. So to get ready to build this Tower 3, we're trying to clean up the title, basically. And so our title company has told us, so that we can get construction financing and other kinds of financing, that we need to get rid of these 3 ancient easements. So the first easement is the one outlined in the blue. And that was part of the LDA when the Tower 1 the property was transferred from the city of New Haven to the Tower's owner. And that was done in 1969. So that very large, the purpose of that easement was to allow the city to build in the redevelopment agency or 2-story open space, sort of recreational facility, which the city never did. And in fact, a portion of that very large easement, Tower East, is built over. So, and also the connection between Tower 1 and Tower East, if you're familiar with those 2 towers, how you walk between them. The city has never done anything, ever made a request, never had plans, and that one's 57 years old. So, and it covers a large portion of where we would put Tower 3. So we're asking that that easement be released. At the same time that easement in 1969 was given, the area in pink was given. And so that was, the purpose of that area was to not have a building, recreational building, but to have open space and a basketball court, maybe tennis courts. And in 1972, that area was expanded north. So that white area and the pink area is all what's called the recreational easement. And in 2001 and 2020, the city agreed to, without going to the Board of Alders, to issue a quitclaim deed to just transfer the pink area. So our title company tells us that's no good because really we need to transfer that whole green area, and the quitclaim deed only referenced the 1969 DLDA and not the 1972, so we need to do some housekeeping with that. And then the final easement is that, it's hard to see from here, but is the yellow little path. It's an 8-foot pedestrian path. Oh, thank you, that's great. And that was created by the city when it gave us the Tower East property. It retained that 8-foot pedestrian easement to travel from Tower Lane over to the basketball court, which is outlined in red. And since that whole pink, white, green area is no longer used for recreation, we're asking that pink access easement, pedestrian easement, also be released. Just the concept in 1969, and it covered, was the Towers properties and the True Street South properties were all part of a planned development district, and the idea was that each was going to share open space with each other. But that's, of course, not what's going on today. So that's our ask, and then we just have a couple more slides just to talk about community outreach. Maybe Gus can do that. Oh, the city plan advisory report, I'm sorry, that's one page. I don't know if you have received that.
Yes, it's part of our packet.
Did you get the final one? Because I only have the draft one. But anyway.
We have the city plan.
Yeah, the advisory report,
Yeah.
and that was adopted, as you know, and the city plan commission on February 27th found that the release of this easement was consistent with the plan 2034, and they found it promoted at least 4 of the goals in our new comprehensive plan. And so they advised 2034. Anyway, yeah, so that is a positive report, and now we have 2 more slides, right?
Yeah, so we've been working on this for a few years now, and we have, we're working on this for a few years now, and we have an advisory committee and a steering committee that has been working on developing Tower 3. We've met with the South Hill management meeting, and we held a citywide public meeting in the library. So we've been going through and making sure that people understand what we're working on and getting their input. And we've also been working with a lot of the state agencies because of the care model that we offer. We've been talking to the Department of Social Services and Department of Housing and several others because we're trying to expand that care model. And the last one. And these are the letters of support. So we have letter support from the area agency on aging in our area, Casa Altamont, RMS companies, which made these buildings next door to ours, as well as some of our residents and families, and also the Whitney Center, as well as the Yale School of Architecture.
So that concludes our presentation, and we'd love to answer any questions you have.
Okay, well, thank you for your presentation. We do have some letters of testimony from David Adams.
Yep.
Okay, and Melissa Lang. Misty, are these all for the town? Okay. Elmer Rivera Bello. I just want to note these for the record too. So we do have, and it looks like they strongly support. So those have been provided to the committee as well.
Thank you.
And get, questions now. I'm just going to go back to slide 19, which shows the blue, the pink, the yellow,
Yes.
the easements that are being requested. And so the city was going to build 57 years ago on the blue section.
They reserve the right to build a 2-story building.
Okay,
Yeah,
that
for
never
recreation.
happened, but it's still
On the land records.
on the land records. And the deed that you had mentioned, the quick claim deed, was invalid because,
Oh, yeah, it wasn't comprehensive enough, so that had
well, it was
to,
only for the 1969 one, but
for
you,
the pink area,
okay,
not the,
not the blue.
yeah.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification. And the city, I think, if I'm not mistaken, there was a letter from the mayor.
So that letter was in support of our community investment fund application, in support of Tower 3. And I did check, and they said it was okay to submit that in support of this relief. We're also asking for a zoning amendment, and you'll hear this, I guess, next week, and Alder Marksville. And so we submitted it in support of our zoning amendment request as well.
Okay, so this is part 1, and then you will continue with part 2 with our legislation.
Yes, yes.
Okay. I'm going to open it up to my committee for questions. So any alders have any questions? Alder Smith?
Thank you, Chair Festa. Thank you three for your presentation and for your work with our seniors in our community. Just two questions, a small question to start. I believe this is Ward 6, is that
Yes.
correct, Alder Rodriguez? And just wanted to hear how she's been engaged in the process so far.
She's been,
She's supposed to be here this evening.
she said she was going to be here tonight. She's been very engaged with it. She knows what we're doing. She's been informed all along the way. She's very much a supporter. And she was very excited about the fact that we would be expanding the towers because she knows what the towers does. So she's definitely in the mood and supporting.
Thank you. I noticed she was in the picture with the ribbon cutting. Just wanted to check. Second, just a little bit of a broader question. What are you noticing around the evolving needs of seniors in this moment in time, particularly around housing, but also if you have any other reflections around the current needs of seniors? Just what are you seeing? What are you noticing? Why is this building so important to support?
So for better or worse, our country decided back in the 1990s that we would create this thing called 401k instead of people having pensions. And so a lot of baby boomers used to have pensions, and I mentally look at baby boomers in three different phases. The first phase of the baby boomers have pensions. The second phase of baby boomers have very small pensions, and the third phase of baby boomers have no pensions. So Social Security was designed to only pay about 55% of a person's living expenses. And when someone worked at the same job for a long period of time, they often would retire with a pension. Pensions are far fewer in between now. And when a person does have a pension, it's usually very small. So we are finding that there's a trend. You can look at the records at the towers that people used to have more income. And as time has gone on, and I've really noticed in the past 10 years, that people have lower and lower incomes because they have fewer and fewer pensions. At the same time, there are folks who need care and support. And the folks who can qualify for Medicaid are okay because we can take care of those folks. It's the people who are slightly above Medicaid who are in a worse position because they don't have a way of paying for their care and they don't have the pensions that they used to. And so we're finding that there are a lot of people who are falling through like a donut hole, so to speak. And we can see, this is my professional opinion, it's going to get worse over the next 20 years, especially because as we're starting to take care of the last part of the baby boomers, their resources are even lower than the prior generation. And I can talk to you about that for 3 hours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alder Smith. Alder Marks.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you for the work you do at the towers. I know people who live there, I know people volunteer there.
Thank you.
It's really a wonderful environment when you walk in the door. So thank you for all you do. Just a question, and I know it's extensive, but just a little piece of it, and perhaps to Attorney Cohn. Do sit on both committees, and we heard the request the other day for the zoning change for the adjacent Church Street South redevelopment area. This is contiguous.
Yes.
In fact, when you're in the towers buildings, you look over the Church Street South site, right? All the way to the harbor. I've seen the beautiful views from apartments on the top floor. Can you just speak a little about coordination or collaboration so that we know on behalf of the city that sort of there is coordination and collaboration across two major developments, that being I think a $1.2 billion development outside the train station.
Yeah. Ours isn't that much.
I
Oh, no, that's a really good question because we've met in the mayor's office, we've met with Mike Piscatelli with the Housing Authority, and we have committed, when we did our city plan commission hearing on the zoning change, it was the same night, we each got up and supported the other. They are asking for a different zone than we are, the TOC, but for us, the elderly housing would require a special permit, and we really need to have as of right zoning. So we're asking for the zoning that's adjacent to our parcel, the Randy Salvador zoning, we'll call it the BD3. But we understand, and we understand there's a need to work collaboratively, and we're very committed to that.
Answer my question. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alder Marks. Any further questions from committee members? Alder Singh?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Attorney Cohen, just some clarity in this street parcel of easement. Could you run that back? You said
Sure.
to get quick clean that and
I got it all.
yeah, and to acquire this street quitclaim, there's a compensation involved. Could you run it? with
No, no, so when the city owned all of the 4+ acres, right, it was part of the redevelopment agency plans. And they first gave a portion of the 4 acres to the Towers for Tower One. And they, in their deed and in the land disposition agreement, they said, look, we want the right to build up to 2 floors, because there was no Tower East then, in the area that's in blue. And we want the right, in the area in pink, to have an open recreation area. As I said, because I'm sort of sharing with the Church Street South, everything was done at that time in the late 60s. As I said, blue, nobody's ever had any plans, nobody's ever come to the city, and the city is not interested in building. In fact, they'd have to knock down Tower East to build on all of it. The other area outlined in green, as I said, the basketball court and was originally, and a playground, I believe, was originally held back in that 69 deed. And then in 72, the city decided it wanted more land for recreation. So that's where you see the white area within the green. Then, over the years, in 2001, I guess the Towers, there was all this communication because that was the time when Church Street South was really bad. And so we said, look, we'd like that area, we'd like it back. And the city said, you have to wait until everybody's gone. In 2020, the city said, okay, we will give you the pink area. But they still held on to the white area. And the title company says, that's no good for 2 reasons. One is they still hold the white area, and 2 is that when they quitclaim the pink area, they only reference the 1969 deed. They didn't reference the 1972, with all this title insurance stuff. So the title insurance company has said, you need to clean house here.
So all these 3 pieces need to cohere into one quitclaim back.
That's right. And that's what we put before the Board of Alders, a quitclaim deed that cleans everything up.
Thank you, Tony. I'm just
No,
trying to
thank
get
you.
an understanding.
No, and I hope I didn't make it too complicated.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for all the clarification, of course, everything that you do, especially for our elders. And, some of us are in the second phase of our lives, and knowing that these institutions actually exist is somewhat a little more calming. I just want to make sure, that Corporation Council has been involved with this.
That's a good question. I've asked them. I don't know the answer to that, but I think that's a very good question.
I mean, we did get the letter of support from the mayor, releasing the parcels, but I just want to make sure that we cover all our bases, and if Corporation Council has reviewed these documents, and if they are in accordance, we just need to cover all bases.
So what do you think would be the best way to have that happen? Do you think it's coming from you, this committee, asking them to? No.
Well, the request should have been made, I mean, it can be made through our legislative aid, but it should have been made through the Towers and coordinated with the mayor.
We have extensively coordinated mayor. We've had endless meetings in his office about this and the zoning, so he's like very involved.
I just want to make sure all the
But I think that's right.
And did you have something to add before I go to my colleague?
No.
Alderman.
Through the chair, may I request that the Towers coordinate with Corporate Council's office, and that we get a letter of support before our, hopefully, first reading, but certainly before our second reading.
Yes.
Okay.
We will definitely consider
All
that.
right. We will
I think
do
it's,
that.
yeah, I think it's an important step just to make sure that all documents are released in a proper order with the proper lingo, et cetera, because this is a big deal. We don't want it to come back and bite anybody.
No, I will make that request to Corporation Council and the request for a letter. I will do that.
Okay. Is that okay, Misty? You have, Ms. Mesa? Thank you. Okay. That's the only last question I have, because I did look through the documents. I didn't see anything, but I figured maybe you had an explanation, so I waited until the meeting to hear it. So what we would do is just, ask that take place with Corporation Council, with the city. And, as I think we spoke prior to the meeting, if this is voted favorably out of this committee, it goes to the full board.
Mhm.
The first reading will be a week from Monday. And then 2 weeks later will be the second reading. So you have about 3 weeks to get that information. Actually, 2.5 weeks. Just so we can review it and make sure that we don't have any further questions for clarification purposes. So does
I will
that
do that.
give you enough time?
Yes, I hope it gives the Corporation Council enough time.
We'll make sure.
Understood.
We will make sure. Any further questions? Okay. Well, thank you for your
Thank you.
presentation. We will vote on this at the end of the meeting agenda.
Okay, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Yes. I just want to recognize, I recognize Majority Leader. So thanks for being here. And Alder Hubbard from Ward 3, thanks for being here this evening. Is there anyone from the public that would like, actually, we have a list. So we have, I'm going to have my vice chair.
Attempt, yes, a beautiful cursive. So what I see is Ruby Benarock, perhaps? Come on up.
And again, just a reminder, whoever comes forward to testify, please state your name and address for the record. Yes. Have a seat. You can talk right into the microphone. Close enough where they can hear you, but not too close where it might be too loud.
Ruby Benaroche. I'm grateful to be at 18 Tower Lane, apartment 154 in New Haven. And I thank Gus and all of you for the opportunity to share my love story, my love letter to the Towers. This was written July 7th, 2025. And I will just read a revised shortened version of my letter. So I am truly forever grateful to be part of the Towers community. This is a Towers family. My journey began in December of 2023. I completed an application process and was accepted. And then after a year and a half, my dream came true. And since my move-in day, June 25th, 2025, I have been warmly welcomed, supported by every member of the staff at the Towers. My transition was perfection, and I congratulate Gus and his amazing staff on the exceptionally beautiful planning of these unique buildings and this community, including at the time, the flourishing gardens and all activities, programs, and conveniences. I look forward each day to being with my Towers family, and I appreciate so much all that they do for us. And I am so proud and so happy to have my friends and family come to visit me. And they join me with love and gratitude forever. I hope you could hear me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Sounds like you're very happy there.
thank you.
Well, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here
opportunity.
tonight.
Good night.
Good night. And next on the list. Was there anyone else that would like to speak on this item, just this item? Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak on Towers project item? And for the third time, item 1 is up for grabs for public testimony, if you'd like to come up. Okay, seeing no further testimony, we will now go on to item number 2, which is residential parking. Ms. Parker? Yes. Have a seat, Ms. Parker. State your name and address for the record and go into your plea.
My name is Janice Barker. I live at 635 Howard Avenue here in New Haven. And I'm appreciative for the passing of the Minor Street, because Minor Street residents are beginning to fluctuate on to the Howard Avenue side, which I've been zoned since 2017. So I was able to help guide them along with the project, and I'm very grateful that they are getting their zone parking. And I'm going to add that there's several other blocks in their hill that are looking forward to it as well. So we're going to be trying to get those residents on the block.
Okay. So the main reason is the challenges of non-residents parking
Yes.
in that area, taken away from the residents.
Yes. The business that's on Minor Street, Cornell Scott, first it was one block. One facility over there, now it's 2. And on the right side is a little bit of a space there. The Boys Club owned where they pick up the kids in the back, so that takes away as well. And then the house that sits on the corner of Howard and Minor Street is a 6-family multi. So they park on that side as well as Howard Avenue. And so it's just beginning to, people are buying cars, more residents, and it's just beginning to fluctuate over to the Howard Avenue side. So I definitely helped them, and I'm grateful today that they're getting their zones, that they could be able to come and park.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like we do have a report also from City Plan, which it's aligned with our city planning objectives. Questions from committee members? Any questions? Alder Moore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, this is an example of civic engagement on a community level. So thank you for coming out, and thank you for supporting your community and taking action to help your community and your neighborhood.
Thank you so much.
And I just want to know for the record that a petition has also been submitted. Was a letter of support from the Alder submitted? Do we know?
No.
No? Do we? Which ward does this lie in?
Ward 3.
Ward 3? Okay. Okay, well, we'll work on that.
Yes.
Was the Alder reached out to for
Yes.
a letter of support?
I gave her the whole packet when she was sitting here at the full board meeting a couple of months ago.
Okay, so we will work on whatever needs to be done.
Okay.
And I guess have further discussion, because the ordinance needs a bunch of documents, and we just need to make sure we have them all. But Alder Marks, do you have some?
Yes, please. Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Official, please. Yeah, hi. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your engagement.
Yes.
I just want to understand, Minor Street, can I show you the map? Sure. I'm gonna push. The map that we have there? I actually visited Minor Street recently because I went over to the Wellness Center, which is a beautiful building. It's beautiful, quite impressive what they built. But looking on Minor Street, you have signatures from people.
Yes.
Can you put that map flat so I can see it as well? So on the blue, the map shows a blue area,
Yes.
which is the proposed parking zone. Is that correct? There's a blue rectangle?
Yes. Okay, so there is this between, so this way with the map is Howard Avenue on this side and Cedar on that side.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the blue rectangle is the proposed parking zone,
Yes.
and this area on Minor Street is what runs directly along the side of the Wellness Center, is that right?
Yes.
So can you just explain to me the houses, the petitions you got, which look like they're running for I just don't know the numbers, like in the 120s and 130s of Minor Street?
Yes.
Where do they live on that map, please?
So there is 4 houses over there with approximately about 20-something residents that live in here.
Can you point
And
that
that's on
out?
the right-hand side. That's a little bit up near this first wellness center, which is Cornell's High on the left. So they're on the right. So their parking starts here going down the side. But then the boys club have a section blocked off where they pick up kids in the back. And then there is no parking. There's a sign that says you cannot park from here to the corner. So there's a big family building on that corner, and they park on the Minor Street side too.
That's my question, guys, through the chair. Can you just show me where the people who signed your petition live on that map?
Okay, so that would be from here, approximately to here.
The record reflects showing the left-hand side of the rectangle.
So that would be the
Through about
right-hand side.
Street here, use that,
So-
print is small.
Thank you. Just for the record to reflect, you're showing a portion of Minor Street from Howard Avenue going towards the center of the street.
Okay, so Howard,
Thank you.
going
Thank
in,
you.
everything's on the right.
Thank you. I'll take my map back. Thank you so much.
Any other questions from committee members?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alder Marks. Any other questions? Okay, so thank you very much for being here this evening and for coming in and speaking on behalf and answering our questions. No problem. Thank you.
No problem.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on behalf of this item? Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? Please come forward. I see our alder from Ward 3. Angel Hubbard.
Good evening, colleagues. I am Alder Angel Hubbard, Ward 3, 27 Elliott Street, New Haven. I oppose this. I'm not sure if I'm going to say it. We can keep it in committee and pass for later discussion. But the opposing of this item is a few reasons. One, I was not given any notice about this item. And secondly, to my understanding, the street is already zoned. It's just these 4 apartments or homes that we're discussing. And it intersects with Alder Rodriguez Ward as well. And it is also in conjunction with the Boys and Girls Club. So, but as of right now, I can't speak on my colleague who we have discussed on both opposing this item, but it's a no for my board.
Would it be wrong to ask why? I mean, we have a lot of challenges with residential parking, and I'm just curious, since you're more familiar with this area and the parking situation and the challenges.
Correct. So again, I'm not even, I'm gonna be honest, completely familiar with all the steps of this. I know that Alder Rodriguez and I have discussed this, and also with the Boys and Girls Club, and it was just like 4 apartments that we're talking about, but the street itself was already zoned.
Yes, except that you can have a zoned area, but you still need to request residential parking
Right.
within that zone, and that's what is before us this evening.
Yes, but the proper channels on reaching out to the alders and everything, it was not.
I have I don't know if you received this or not, but it was copied to committee members back in November of 2025, November 18th.
No,
That was
I did not
part of our
receive that.
packet. And then I don't know, there's also signatures here with a petition.
No, I did not receive this. So actually tonight is the first time I'm actually organizing this. But I did not receive this.
Okay. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
No.
Okay. Any questions from committee members? Alder Marks?
I'm just curious, I guess, I don't know if you'll know off the top of your head, I am just thinking under. I'm just curious to know about, there's a lot of parking needs on that street. Certainly the wellness center,
Yes.
it's a parking need. I visited the wellness center,
Mhm.
to visit someone there. Parkville Minor Street.
Correct.
Do you know off the top of your head, I know, for me to put you on the spot, is there parking are there places to park for people visiting the wellness center other than Minor Street, or is that the only parking for the people visiting the wellness center?
I believe it's only parking.
And if I may, through the chair, do you know, is there other parking? Does the Boys and Girls Club have designated parking, or is this the only parking?
I believe it's shared. I believe there's a parking lot, and then it's parents that come pick up the kids and drop off the kids. And I think that's where it enters into all the Rodriguez ward.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alder Marks. Okay, I'm just looking at the map, and is there a drop-off zone for pickup of the Boys and Girls Club? I don't know if this is a driveway or kind of loops.
Right, that's where it's confusing. So I don't have a clear answer on that.
Okay. Okay. Any further questions? I saw you first, so Alder Moore and then Alder Smith.
Alder Hubbard, thank you for coming out. I know you mentioned that the possibility of passing on this item, is that what you're encouraging us to do, or are you encouraging us to flat out vote no? I just want to make sure I understand your position clearly. Is this like a more time to discuss with the people who submitted it?
Right.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Okay, thank you, Alder Moore. Alder Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Alder Hubbard, for being here. One just quick question. On the map, which portion of Minor Street is represented by Alder Rodriguez?
Where the Boys and Girls Club, I think it's the back of the Boys and Girls Club.
Okay, on Cedar Street?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you,
No
Alder
problem.
Hubbard. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alder Smith. Any further questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you.
No problem, thank you.
And once again, is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? Please come forward. Good evening.
Good evening.
Have a seat. And name and address for the record, please.
My name is Mikael Pittman. I live at 82 Orchard Street. I really wasn't prepared to speak tonight, but after the alder for Ward 3 spoke, and I think it's important to really understand what's going on in our ward. It doesn't make sense for an alder that we have in our ward to deny this. It doesn't make sense. The people on Minor Street, they don't have enough parking. Now, when it comes down to Cornell Scott Center, they do have private parking, but the residence itself that goes into that building, they park on Minor Street. Cornell Scott has ample parking, which is located on Commerce Avenue. They have plenty of space. Now, in terms of notification, Janice Parker did hand her that notice about the concerns on Minor Street, unless she just caught amnesia and she just doesn't remember. So maybe I shouldn't say it like that, but
We just demand respect in this room.
yeah, I understand. I apologize
Thank
for
you.
saying that. Regarding the girls and boys school, they do have parking, which is located on, I think it's Washington Avenue. That is the pickup. And also, that is the space where the parents normally park their car. Now, the back part of the Boys and Girls Club, very seldom do parents itself usually drop kids off. If they can't make it around the other side, they do come on that side. And usually most of the time, they just drop the kids off. So they're not like standing there like 10 or 15 minutes, just a quick drop off. And then from there, they move. So that's all I have to say because I really wasn't prepared to speak tonight. But after I heard our order speak, I think it was important for me to make a few clarifications.
So Alder Marks mentioned the wellness center,
Mhm.
and it seems like there's not ample parking there. So
people are parking on Minor Street.
That's true, but they do have a shuttle where the employees there, they have ample parking along Washington Avenue, pretty close to Cornell Scott Center. They have ample parking there.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Any questions from committee members? Alderman Marks?
Thank you. Mr. Pittman?
Yes,
This is the map that we're all looking at. It just shows
Okay.
Minor Street.
sure.
There's a blue rectangle that's showing Minor Street. Do you see that?
The lighter roofed.
Sure.
And then the blue rectangle is the Minor
And
Street.
then
It
yeah.
looks like there are two, there's the light blue rectangle building and the dark purple next to it.
Correct.
These are the wellness center. Can you just point out, if you know, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity. Where are you showing us as the Cornell Scott parking, please? Are you able to find it on this map?
No, it doesn't show here because they use a shuttle.
Off-site with a shuttle from
Yes.
Washington, so it's not in this vicinity?
No,
Okay.
no.
Not a trick question, I just
No,
wanted to
that's
understand the
that's
map.
fine.
Thank you, Mr.
That's a
Pittman.
fair question.
Thank
Sure,
you, thank you.
absolutely.
All set, Alderman?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Marks.
Take
Any
my map
further
back, Mr. Pittman.
questions?
Oh, sure.
Thank you, sir.
Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
for testifying. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak on behalf of this item? Is there anyone else from the public that would like to come forward and speak on this item? And for a third time, is there anyone interested in speaking on this item? Please come forward. Okay, seeing none, we will move on to item number 3, which is our Parks Department to accept a grant, and I see our director coming forward.
Hello.
You know the check.
I do, yes. Hey, I'm Max Webster. I'm the Parks Director for City of New Haven. I live at 48 Hugh Winter Street.
Thank you. Do you have a presentation? or
I don't have a
just gonna speak?
presentation.
Okay, that's all right. We
so
have our
fo-
packet.
So folks may or may not be familiar that there is a small fishing pier that was installed by Fish and Wildlife Department several years ago on the north pond of Beaver Pond Park. It's just south of King Robinson School. And while a great and well-intentioned project, the pier itself is not a safe fishing platform. It was not ever anchored appropriately, and so it kind of lifts in the water and creates a hazard for kids as they go out there. For fishing programs primarily led by local community groups, CPEN, and Doreen Abubakar, who runs that program. And this summer we started a partnership with the Fisheries Department with Connecticut Deep, and started to remove some invasive species around the south side of the North Pond of Beaver Ponds and create some access there. Through that partnership and that relationship, they informed us that they had some funding that may be available to fix or improve that pier. So through conversation with them, we arrived at an agreement that they would provide a 75% to 25% cost share to replace that pier, originally giving us a budget of $75,000 to do that. So within that, we put a proposal together, and originally they told us it was a time-sensitive request and that the funding would go away at a certain point, so we kind of moved this along as quick as we can just so we could secure that funding. That has since changed and given us a little bit more space and time to work on the design of this pier. And so we're working with the engineering department currently to come up with the best fit design for this pier that would enhance the already ongoing and existing uses of that space, but just make it a better and safer facility, right? So where that leaves us right now, we had an original dollar amount within that proposal that has since changed a little bit as we're working on finalizing the design with the engineering department, and that will allow us to settle on an actual final cost for this project. The cost share component for us would still be that 25% of the final project cost. And we can use any of our in-kind work that has been ongoing around Beaver Ponds to contribute to that match. So the ongoing restoration work, the design, costs from our staff that go into that, any of that additional work. So that'll really buy down the cost for the project. But yeah, that's the project in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you for that. Can you just, I want to just get clarification on the funding available. So
Yeah.
Connecticut Deep has 65,000 earmarked.
So they have more now, and this comes
Okay, so
from,
that needs to be updated.
that needs to be
right?
updated. Yeah.
What was that amount? Did you say?
So it's kind of an undefined space right now since our last conversation with them. We were working with their engineering department right now to finalize the design. What they said is, pretty much they can cover their portion, that 75% of whatever design it is that we land on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So whatever the design cost is, they will cover the 75%.
Yep, that's right.
Of
Yep.
that. Okay, so it could be 65,000, could be more.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
Could be less.
And unlikely
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Yes.
Okay. And then the 48,750 federal funding?
It is, yes, it's federal funding from the Fish and Wildlife Department that is passed down to the state. So the state acts as a pass through to then get this out the door to local communities, primarily for the benefit of public access and fishing programs.
Okay, and then the 16,250 is our responsibility.
Under that original proposal, representing that 25%, but that's likely to change as well as we work on this final design.
So 75% deep, 25% us.
That's right. Yep.
But there's also that, I guess I'm a little confused where the federal fund comes into play.
So the federal fund,
That's 100%.
the federal funding is what is passed down to DEEP, and then DEEP is passing that down through. So DEEP's funding is the federal funding.
All right,
Yep.
I gotcha.
Yep.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. There's also an MOU is required between DEEP and the city.
Yeah, so that's what was communicated to us originally. Based on our last conversation, that's actually not a requirement.
Okay.
And we have more space and time to get those agreements in place. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. Any questions from committee members? Alder Marks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can't resist. Is the pond stocked and what's in it?
Yeah, the pond is stocked. They just did a stocking event ahead of a fishing derby that they did at the pond. And I want to say it was September, I believe. They stocked it with trout. My understanding is that the primary fish that are caught in the pond, though, are catfish, and then there's common carp in there as well.
Okay.
So yeah, so it's more sports fishy and catch and release kind of fishing experience.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alder Marks. Alder Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Director Webster. I think I recall you mentioning that the first time the pier was built, there were some structural challenges.
Yeah.
What were those challenges, and how is this pier being designed to mitigate those challenges? What are the lessons learned?
Yeah, so the primary challenges, I don't exactly know what they were looking at in terms of their original design, is that it's kind of a short, number one, it's a short pier. And so accommodating the amount of kids that come down there for programming is difficult in the first place. And they have to do a lot of, we can have one kid out here, kids out here at a time, and do a lot of rotation. So just the size of it is an issue to begin with. But the way that it is, they anchored it, it's not secure. So it's a floating pier, but what happens is it sort of lifts like that if you go on it. So you're at risk if you're on it to be basically dumped into the water. Yeah. So the new design that we're looking at, and again, we're still finalizing that design, we're looking at a shape to provide additional space for young kids to have safe access to learn to fish close to the shoreline, and then an extended pier section that will go a little bit deeper into the water. And then, we're trying to figure out right now basically what that the anchorings for that will look like, and that's what we're doing, working with the engineering department to figure that out. But it will be a much more stable structure.
Thank you, Director Roadster. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alder Smith. And we do have, this is the current.
That's the current one, yeah. So it's really nice, and then it does have an ADA accessible path that goes all the way down to it, yeah.
But this pier will be basically replaced.
That's right, yep.
Okay, to a more secure, safer. Is this blocked off right now where people can access?
It is accessible. Like if you're one person and go out on there, it's going to be fine. But once you start putting an additional weight or load on there, that's when it becomes problematic. Yeah. So, so right now, you know, the pond has largely been frozen over, you know, for the past few weeks. So it hasn't been a big concern in terms of people going out there. But yeah, we'll be looking at what we do in terms of just making it a safe place to go between now and getting a new pier. Yeah.
What is the timeline looking like? When will we know about this?
So we're hoping to get the design finalized fairly soon, and then, you know, if we can get everything lined up, then I think, you know, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'd be looking at construction of something later this summer.
Okay, so it'll be after the summer.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will we block it off? Do we have to? Is it a safety concern?
Well, we're going to evaluate that and figure it out. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any further questions from committee members?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Director, have there been any efforts to engage the community on this particular proposal?
Yeah, so the primary proponent of this project and where this came from was from our local partner who we work with a lot in the New Hallville neighborhood, which is an organization called CPEN, stands for Creative Placemaking Environment Engagement Network. Is that right? Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and so these are the folks who are responsible for the learning corridor on the Farmington Canal Trail. They do a number of different youth program and engagement efforts throughout the Farmington Canal area and New Hallville, as well as the West River watershed boating program, things like that. Yeah, and they do the fishing program there.
And so you had community meetings with them? Can you outline?
No, I didn't have community meetings because this is replacing an existing use for something that was already established in the past.
And I do have another, I'm sorry. I'm just collecting my thoughts here for a second. How often is this particular pier used in the summer?
Well, people go out there on their own, you know, whenever they want to, right? So it's public accessible. Anybody can go out there. In terms of the formal programming that happens there from CPEN, it's regular programming, but I wouldn't hazard a guess right now on exactly how often that gets used. And then it gets used from, for programming, mostly with our outdoor adventure program in support of whatever CPEN is doing. But other groups like Friends of Beaver Ponds are involved in that area as well.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you. Now, it looks like even from the city plan, some considerations, it looks like there's some goals to maybe enhance that area with kayaking and more.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall Beaver Ponds is a tremendous resource in our community, and it needs to be enhanced in terms of accessibility. Some challenges around invasive vegetation and things like that prevent access to it. Like a lot of people, you can't even see it in large areas around the pond. So we would like to see continued improvements in terms of access and use of that resource. Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Any further questions? Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Director.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? Please come forward. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? Please come forward. For a third time, if there's anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item, please come forward. Okay, seeing none. Let's see. We have the workshop next, but I'm wondering if we should just vote on our items. You know what, I'll wait, we can wait till the next vote on our items. Okay, the next portion of the meeting, I'm hoping to wait for Ms. Mays, our aide, to come back. But does she need to be here for us to vote on these items? Because I'd like to vote on them and then we'll go on to the workshop. That's okay. Okay, so committee members, before we start the workshop, let's go ahead and oh goodness, I can't speak. Yes. We're going to go into the workshop right after we vote on these 3 items that we had.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, so committee members, we have 3 items on the agenda. Do I hear a motion to move item number 1?
Motion to move item number 1.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion on item number 1? This is the Tower Lane. Any discussion? Alder Singh.
Madam Chair, we heard the testimony, and I would like to hear from the attorney's office regarding this matter with some documentation to give us some clear guidance, what is the status of this easement and this parcel, etc., before I can vote on this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I'll take a little bit more of a proactive position than my colleague here with deference to him. I would like to hear from Corporations Counsel's office, but it does seem to be a very comprehensive presentation. It is being presented by Attorney Cohn, who we know and see here often, letter from the mayor, community groups. It seems to me to be a relatively straightforward and extremely reasonable request. We'd like to see the affordable, particular housing for seniors. It seems to be that the city has easements that it has never exercised and doesn't need. My proposal, just a slight variation on what my colleague suggested, to get some other options for our colleagues, would be that we vote. I'm comfortable voting favorably tonight with the understanding that we would see a letter before, hopefully the first reading, but certainly before the second reading. I wouldn't feel comfortable having a final vote without seeing that letter. But I am comfortable suggesting that we could go forward today with vote.
Thank you, Alder Moore. Any further discussion? Alder Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to echo my colleague Alder Marks. I'm also in favor of this item contingent on the same arc and process that she mentioned. And I just want to plus one just how critically important senior housing is. And this seems like a pretty tremendous development, and that's providing dozens of units for housing that for seniors that we desperately need. So just commend the team who's put this together and the multiple stakeholders, including Alder Rodriguez, for being involved to make it possible. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alder Smith. Any further discussion? Alder Moore?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is a wonderful project, and just echo some of the remarks that my colleagues have made. It does, however, give me some pause that we have not heard from Corporation Counsel before voting on this item. I don't know if we might consider passing to get more information. I am reluctant to vote on an item without all of the information before me. Maybe that's my background, but so that's just a comment that I have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Just so everyone knows, we have 2 attorneys on this committee, which I appreciate. I'm going to just add, yes, I think it's important for us to get the okay from Corporation Counsel, just to be sure that the I's are dotted, T's are crossed. I'm confident that we could get that information before the second reading. I know that this group is going to be going to our legislative committee as well for further discussion. I'm comfortable voting in favor of this out of committee, and I will make every effort to make sure that we get the proper okays from Corporation Council. There is a letter from, the mayor's office in approval of this. We can vote it favorably out of committee and always hold back on the vote if we don't have the documentation by the second reading. We can pass over it. I don't like to do that, but I'm okay doing that if we don't have the proper documents by the second reading, if that makes any sense. With that being said, I appreciate the business plan that this group has. I was very impressed and very happy to see too that they are looking at all demographics, meaning all the folks too that make too much but too little, if that makes any sense. I'm a 401k-er. Company I worked for did not have a pension plan, but I'm not a boomer, I'm a Gen X. I want to make that clear. But with that being said, it is nerve-wracking when you look at, the finances. And because I'm reaching closer to that age group than the other age group, you look at it even closer because, some of us don't want to burden our children, but at the same time, we want to live independently. And this is made possible. And I'm glad that I feel like I have to sign up now, in order to be a part of Towers. But regardless of that, I really appreciated that they look at the whole picture and they look at everybody. And that is greatly appreciated. So, I mean, if it's, obviously I'm not going to have you vote the way you want and feel comfortable with. And if there's no further discussion, we can move forward with a vote. So anyone else want to add anything? Yes, Alder.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to go on the record saying that I am in favor of this project. I'm supporting this project, but like I said earlier, had a question about the easement, etc. But you stated you would contact Clark Council offices and they will work that out. So if that gets to us, yes, I'm in favor of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. And if there's no further discussion, let's take a vote. All in favor of this item, say aye. Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. And I will make sure we have the proper documentation. Okay. Item number 2, I feel like we need to take no action on this item, at least for now until we get further information from the Alder. So if everyone is okay with that, we will not take any action on this item and keep it in committee. So brings us to item number 3. Do I hear a motion to move item number 3?
So move, Madam Chair.
Second.
Okay, item 3 has been moved and seconded. Any discussion on item number 3?
Madam Chair, I think I'm moving for a friendly amendment to that item.
To
item number 3.
Okay, go forward with the amendment.
The amendment, Madam Chair, looking at the text file.
Which page?
Page 36.
36. Okay. Does everyone have page 36 in front of them?
And if I may move to amend the 4th paragraph.
Where it says now
therefore, $2 amounts within that paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to move to amend the first dollar amount to say, I'd like to increase that to up to $200,000.
So up to 200, okay.
Up to, and I'd like to amend friendly amendment to include the second monetary amount to say an increase it to quote up to $75,000.
Okay. So the clause will now read as, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Alders of the City of New Haven, authorizes the mayor of the City of New Haven to accept up to $200,000 grant award from the Connecticut Department of energy and environmental protection, and for the Parks Department to provide up to $75,000 contribution match to create a safer pier at the north pond of Beaver Ponds Park.
Yes, please, thank you.
Okay, is there a second on this amendment?
Second, Madam Chair.
All in favor of the amendment only, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays, abstentions, the ayes carry. We will now go back to the item as amended. All in favor of the item as amended, say aye. Oh, discussion, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm jumping the gun. Any discussion on on the amendment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Alder, can you provide me a little bit more light on the increase to $75,000?
I could probably
through the
answer.
chair, or to the chair, whoever.
Yes, so if we saw earlier in the documents, there's 75% from DEEP and then 25% from the city as a match. So that would be the 25% of the city's responsibility.
But just to clarify, we don't know the total amount for either, is that correct?
According to what we heard tonight, we did not get any amounts.
The amendment is up to and suggested by committee staff.
I see. Those were the amounts suggested by. Okay.
Now okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Would there be a willingness to, $75,000 is a lot of money in the parks budget. I guess that's my primary concern, given we don't know the total amount of this project. Is there a possibility to lower that amount so they can come back and ask for more if they need it? Would that be something that you might be willing to entertain? Or?
I think the amendment as presented through the chair was presented as on behalf of the directorate that the director had requested, and what the city staff had suggested, as my understanding, is just an up to, and regarding the $75,000, it's what the director has requested as part of his decisions within the department, how he would use the
I see.
budget we would allocate to him. This is his discretion.
Okay, thank you.
The amendment was the amendment was to reflect what the director had requested. That's the, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alder Marks. And just for further clarification, that amount was questioned. The original amount was questioned. So it sounds like we don't have an amount yet, and it is based upon the actual project design. And it sounds like this is a range. Now, we're not going to be responsible for, DEEP won't be responsible for the full $200,000. It's up to that amount. And then the 75,000, we're not responsible for the 75,000. We're just responsible for that 25% of whatever DEEP gives us. So it's not obliging us the $75,000. So it's not, we're not responsible for that full $75,000. It's up to that amount, so it could be less. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Alder. I appreciate the clarification, given the information on the source of the funds. I also think creating these limits is a prudent fiscal measure, given that the percentages involved. So thank you very much for the amendment, and thank you for the clarification. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Any further discussion on the amendment? Okay. We already voted on it, but because I think our agreement, are we clear with the numbers?
Yeah, just
okay.
For the record, Madam Chair, yes, I'm planning to support the measure.
Okay, thank you. Now, we're going to go back to the item as amended and vote on the item as amended. And as long as there's no further discussion on the item itself as amended, we can go for a vote. So any further discussion? Okay. All in favor of this item as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? The ayes carry. Okay, so now, we have voted on our items and we will open it up for the workshop. I will say, I know that the snowstorms have been very challenging. The committee has asked that we get some reports back from our city departments. And I do see the representation here. We have our Chief Administrative Officer McCarthy, as well as our Deputy CAO Bombero. They have a presentation for us. I also see present our EOC Director Caleb Land, our DPW Director Mike Siciliano. We have Max Webster, Director of Parks, and someone else too from Parks Department. Zach, Deputy Zach. And we also have Dr. White from the Board of Education. And Traffic and Parking, Ms. Haley Simpson, Director Haley Simpson. And Deputy Director as well from Transportation, Traffic and Parking. I also want to note for the record that Alder Marchand has joined us. Thank you for being here this evening. You can all have a seat, and I will ask that you all state your name and address for the record, and then we'll go right into the presentation, followed by questions from committee members. Well, the presentation, and then if any department heads would like to add to what has been presented, you will have that opportunity. We will then have the committee members question, and then we'll open it up to the public. It's going to be a nicely crowded table, so grab chairs. If we can maybe scoot down a little bit. And we appreciate you being here this evening. Thank you for your patience. We got started a little late, and but now we're good. And once again, I will ask that you state your name and address for the record, and then we can begin. So would you like to?
I'll start, yeah. Justin McCarthy, Chief Administrative Officer, 569 Orange Street. Mike Siciliano, Director of Public Works, 12 Lion Street.
Haley Simpson, Director of Transportation, Traffic and Parking, 93 Plymouth Street.
Caleb Land, Emergency Management Director, 19 Ingram Street, Hamden.
Max Webster, Director of Parks, 48 Hugh Bender Street.
Zachary Moreau, Deputy Director of Parks, 50 Milford Road, Wallingford.
Eric Hoffman, Deputy Director, Transportation, Traffic and Parking, 199 Karen Lee Road, Glastonbury, Connecticut.
Good evening, Dr. Paul White, 170 Osborne Avenue, Chief of School Operations.
Becky Rombera, Deputy Chief Administrative Officer, 122 West Rock.
Great. Thank you all for being here tonight. I know the storms, we had two pretty big storms. There have been some challenges, and the purpose of this workshop is for an opportunity for you all to explain what the process is, what the New Haven protocol is, the responsibilities of the city, but also the responsibilities of the residents, because this takes a collaborative effort from everyone to make it a successful operation. And that is the purpose of having this. It's to educate us on the protocol and for us to also educate the public on their responsibilities. So I hope we can accomplish that this evening with everyone's cooperation, and hopefully we won't get any further storms, but if we do, we can hopefully be prepared for them. So appreciate you all being here. With that, the floor is yours.
Thank you to all of you. We have prepared a presentation that will break down primarily city services, and then I know Dr. White has also some information specific for the Board of Ed. So we'll go through the PowerPoint presentation, myself and the Deputy Becky, so she's actually started. This is some drone footage that we shot with our police drones to give us a sense of where we were. This is right after the storm. This is the Dixwell Avenue area. This is to demonstrate how much work goes into the snow removal process, which we'll talk about. This was downtown overnight. We tried to focus our downtown overnight operations and then neighborhood operations during the day when people were at work. So we just want to give you a quick sense of how much goes into the operation. And then this is relatively short. So, and then it will cut to sometime after the storm, 24 hours or so. So you could see how much has gone into it, the amount of clearing that went into downtown, the amount of clearing by the Parks Department on the green, and how much of a difference just over 24 hours makes in the course of one of these types of storms. I think it's important to note that the drone was a new tool for us with this, and it's something that we saw a lot of value in, so we are exploring other options for drone usage related to storms. We are not there yet. This was somewhat of a beta test with our police department. Obviously, the drones are very finicky with the weather and things like that, so we had to wait to put them up, but it was a good exercise for us to see what our capabilities are now and what we would like them to be in the future. So the next slide will take us through some of our weather patterns. So Winter Storm Benjamin was the more interesting of the two storms, in my opinion, because it hit us and then it immediately followed up with a cold snap that lasted for 2 weeks. So historically with New England snow, what we have seen is that it will snow, we get a few inches, and then it typically is in the mid to high 30s right afterwards, and we start to see melt off. It also allows the parks and public works crews to get out there and easily push back slush, right? So anybody who's living in New England knows, you know, you put your galoshes on for the day after the storm because that's when it's a wet mess. We didn't have that here. We had a snowstorm immediately followed by 0-degree temperatures for almost 2 weeks. We had rock hard ice, so we had to work with that. We also had the challenges of the people who are not compliant, for instance, right? So you have people who are not compliant with shoveling a sidewalk. Now that sidewalk turns into an ice skating rink. It needs a machine as opposed to a shovel, and it slows the entire process down. We can no longer use muscle power. We're using actual physical parks machines and other machines from contractors just to get snow cleared on small areas. That was followed up pretty quickly, as you see by the dates, by Winter Storm Calvin, which dropped pretty much the most snow we've seen in at least 6 years and combined almost 10. That was put on top of all the snow from Benjamin. So it was a big challenge. The other unique part about Winter Storm Calvin was if you like we all hear, the forecast rapidly changed. So when we went home on Friday, having met about this, we were prepared for a maybe, and then quickly on Saturday had to pivot to a yes, right? So we didn't sit on our laurels, but we also were going by the forecasts that we had with our various apps that the city pays for emergency management, through our partners at some of the news outlets, and then immediately had to pivot and make sure we had things set up. Now, I'm not saying things weren't set up, but our crews don't typically work on Sunday, right? So we had to make sure that we had crews that were coming in. The crews were then having to prepare to work a 16-hour straight shift as opposed to working an 8-hour shift. So there are things that we had to pivot on, which we did, but it does add a layer of challenge to city staff who now have to make those changes to get that done and be prepared. If we go to the next slide, our emergency management operations center was open for both storms, all right? So I'll actually read it inverted. We'll start with Winter Storm Benjamin. We created 275 tasks, and those tasks come in through various requests, right? They could be an alder request, it could be a citizen request, it could be one of our public safety departments calling something in, police, fire, EMS calling something in. We created tasks. That does not include phone calls where we were able to answer a question. So that is an actual ticketed item that needs either a follow-up or something related to that request addressed beyond an answer on the phone. We staff the Emergency Operations Center for 24 hours a day, starting on February 27th through February 25th. And that means that typically myself Director Bland, Deputy CAO Bombero are in that room. And Chief of Staff Sean Madison was also down there to help out because obviously we have to sleep, right? So there's a rotation there. There's also representation from police, fire, public works, parks, transportation, traffic, and parking. We have partners stopping in from AMR. We have partners stopping in from Board of Ed. We were doing constant contact with Board of Ed and others that were checking in at the EOC. We were also doing follow-ups with those partners during Winter Storm Benjamin. Winter Storm Benjamin did not have the wind factor. Flipping it to Winter Storm Calvin, obviously sequential in the alphabet for storm naming. 380 tasks were created. Same thing with a task being something that needs more than an answer on the phone. Again, we staffed from the 25th through the 27th with the same, and we also added a layer with our tree crews and on-call tree contractors because of the wind issues and being prepared for that. We did see some call-outs, which I'll get to later, related to wind in that storm. It's also important to know that emergency responses still have to go on. So police, fire, and EMS still have to respond to every single request for service. And for context, I just wanted to point out that during Winter Storm Calvin, this is based on a 24-hour period from the storm starting until 24 hours after the start of the storm. The fire department responded to 167 during Calvin and 121 during Benjamin. PD was 205 and 147. And why that's important is our plows needed to assist in many of these cases, all right? So while the fire department has chains and the police department had four-wheel drive vehicles, the ambulances do not. So in several cases, ambulances became stuck. We had to deploy plows pretty rapidly from a different area where we might have had to send a smaller truck. And so this may cause a deviation in what you see for a plow operation. Now, in total, during Calvin, we had 372 calls. That included the 3-alarm fire at 1523 Chapel Street, which did require a significant response from fire, but was also backed up relatively quickly with DPW, who assisted with sand because we had freezing in the street from the hoses. It also is important to know, even though they're not represented here, that fire had just shoveled the hydrant in front of that structure. So that was one less thing they had to worry about while arriving to this incident, right? But why it's so important that we keep the fire hydrants clear, which is done both through our residents, our businesses, and through the fire department, which I'll show you as we continue on through the presentation. So we talked about other responsibilities. The fire department does assist us a great deal along with PD, but primarily the fire department because they're the ones who struggle to get down some of the tight roads. So when we receive calls that there's a tight road, a car's blocking the road, what we typically do is we send a plow truck and or the fire department to test it out. That is one of our gauges of what a tight street really is. Now, having worked in the fire department for my entire career, I can tell you it's rather impressive what our firefighters can get through. So the gauge of what a impassable street is typically gauged by can we get a fire truck down. From there, as the storm subsides and our plow trucks get out, the other way we check is can we get the trash trucks down the street? And those are our two gauges. So what may appear to be an impassable street because of blocked cars is truly passable by definition because emergency services are our gauge. The other thing that the fire department does throughout the course of that is shovel the hydrants that are not shoveled by either residents. One of the big positives that's happened is the adopt a hydrant. A lot of people have participated in it. It's worked out really well. But within 36 hours of a storm, every single fire hydrant was shoveled out. So that's a good gauge for us on this level of a storm. And that is with, I want to point out that that's with the pushback of the plows. So sometimes we're shoveling the same hydrant, just like people are shoveling the same sidewalk. We may shovel the same hydrant, having personally done it 3 to 4 times. And to a point that one of your colleagues made to me, it is an ongoing process to clear sidewalks, clear hydrants, clear driveways. And while I know that it is very frustrating for people sometimes, it is unfortunately what we have to deal with being we're a tight New England city.
One thing to add, one of the complicating factors in Calvin is that fire department assessment that occurs was thrown off by that fire because all of the units were responding to that. So they weren't our eyes on the road doing that. So we had to pivot a lot internally because of that. And Justin and Kayla were at the fire. It took a lot of our resources that would normally be spending on the storm away.
So I wanted to use this slide to point out some of the things that go on, right? So if you look at the upper photo, that's in New Hallville, that is a snow removal process. So that is when we come out with our crews. Most of the snow removal that happened after Calvin, this was Calvin, I personally took this photo. This is a contractor. So we contract out this year. We had a contract with Cherry Hill Construction. They provided us with dump trucks, small machines and large machines to move a lot of the snow. And we'll get into the snow removal a little bit more. But this is after we've done what we can to widen the road from a plow perspective, and now we need to remove large piles, obstructions from corners, and we did that throughout the city. If you look at the lower right, this is an area of Westville where you can see there was really good adherence to the parking ban. And I point that out because there's no snow around any of the parked vehicles. This is 24 hours after the last snowstorm. This is a relatively small street, which I believe unnamed, but it was impressive to see, and so I physically took that photo, right? And it makes a.
Somebody's coming to look.
I think it's on a line. I'm just gonna say I don't know off the top of my head. So I personally took this photo. This is 24 hours. This is not a heavily traveled street, but you can see that where the compliance of the people parking makes a huge difference for the ability to clear a street. The lower left, what I want to point out here is this is a pretty wide and passable street. However, what we have here is snowpack, and our plows are not designed to pull up heavy weighted snowpack. They're designed to clear the street. So in an instance like this, where you have a lot of snowpack and it's freezing and it's frozen to the asphalt, this would require us to actually bring in loaders, the big heavy duty loaders to scrape the ground up. But keep in mind, we run the risk of damaging things like manhole covers. So we do that in isolated areas, but we don't do that on every single street. We make it passable, okay? And then we love when the sun comes out and helps us, and then we come back and try to push that back. So I wanted to demonstrate 3 things that we look at on a regular basis. What we have here is a demonstration of our snow removal. So we took, between the city and Board of Ed, we took several hundred truckloads, and these were large triaxle style dump truck, and trucked snow out of our areas, whether it was downtown, just how big it is. There will be snow there till July. But we moved several hundred truckloads around the city, and we did so in, I can say with relative certainty, every ward. We had to do some snow removal in every ward. While we did focus a lot of it on areas where we see traffic congestion, right? So our Chapel Street was a priority. Edgewood Avenue was a priority where it gets super tight. Grove was another one, State Street. So those are areas where we did focus. We also did a lot of neighborhood clearing based on safety concerns, based on need. And then with Calvin, a lot of decisions were made based on ones we hadn't gotten to from Benjamin, because now we had an increase of what was there from Benjamin. So a lot went into it. Director Siciliano, his head of streets, Steve Mostakos, they would work together. They would actually go out and lay eyes, and then every day we would come up with a list, and that list was very fluid. It changed oftentimes right up until the last minute based on need. I know a lot of people have brought up to us the idea of melting snow, similar to what New York City does. We had a few issues with this, so I did look into it. The closest melter that was available was in Minnesota. That was readily available. It was used, and it was still over $250,000. All right. We would still have to move the snow. So the thing about what they did in New York City, especially in the Wall Street area, was they brought the snow to this area of Wall Street. They melted it. So it would be like us bringing it to Marginal Drive and then melting it. In our opinion, once we got it to Marginal Drive, it's something that isn't going to bother anybody and it can stay there. Some of the other areas were the back end of East Shore Park. We brought some to a property the city owns on Lloyd Street. We brought some to some of the vacant, properties that the city owns. A couple of parking lots were used just because of proximity. So we had a variety of areas around the city. The other thing with the melting of the snow was during Benjamin, if we were using a melter, we would have ended up with Madison Square Garden level ice underneath it, which was a concern because we're now dumping water everywhere. So it was a real trade-off. And the idea of a snow melter, we have to be fiscally responsible, and we had better fiscal options here. The other thing that was brought up was dumping snow in our bodies of water. After Storm Calvin, we were notified by DEEP that we could go through a process with DEEP to do this. Part of that would require us to exhaust our dump sites. We did not do that, so we did not want to enter into anything with DEEP where we are now dumping snow into our waterways. It's important to know much of this snow is off of roadways. It's got sand, salt, all kinds of things in it. Where we dump the snow, we can go back and actually clean it up relatively easy. The other thing that I wanted to note here, Dr. White will go into, is Dr. White also had crews working around the clock to do snow removal, and I'll let him speak to that. The last point that I'll bring up on this slide is one of the things we're working on is better snow-related GPS. So we are working on this. We are not at a point where we truly feel it's 100%. It's something that we want to use it as a tool, and eventually, relatively soon, I would hope well before next snow season, we will have something that's workable here. Part of the issue that we run into is we use contractor vehicles. We don't have the ability to put our GPS, so we're working through actually issuing them cell phones when they show up. The problem is we don't always get the same trucks. So we're trying to figure out how best to work with that. Our trucks have a GPS. We can track them. We do rely on several contractors' vehicles, and so that was our challenge here. I want to bring up with the Parks Department, and just to be clear, I don't have a definitive slide to explain the difference between what the Parks crew does and what the DPW crew does, but if you think DPW manages most of the streets with the exception of our state roads, okay? Parks assists with that, as well as park spaces and a lot of other secondary places such as fire department facilities, police facilities, and they have a lot of the smaller trucks that help on some of our dead ends and some of our smaller areas. The other thing that was that I wanted to flag is that Parks has also assisted with our Board of Ed properties. They utilize all of the smaller equipment, which we use in tandem with the DPW crews, but they also have our tree crews. And if you look some of these photos, I actually drove out to the Upper Westville area. Becky and I both did, to confirm where the tree was actually down, where the closest ones to it. But that's the work that our Parks tree crews do to get out there and make sure that we don't have trees affecting homes, cars, wires, etc. So there's a lot to that. And with Calvin, we did see a lot of wind, and we did have tree call-outs for that. For our folks at Transportation, Traffic, and Parking, Haley and Eric are here to discuss further, but we do have a tow policy that's available on the city page. And we do encourage, and I'll encourage at the end as well, that people in your awards, Center for New Haven Alerts. That's one of our biggest tools for making sure people know about what level of a parking ban we're utilizing, whether it's just downtown, snow routes, everybody. We also have the blue lights that are primarily for downtown. And we post on the city website the updates. When there is a parking ban, we typically try to work with the folks to find an alternative. We know that a lot of people don't have off-street. So one of the things that is offered, but I will tell you from driving around, and it is utilized in very specific areas, not all of them, is city schools. So city schools, we have designated parking areas during a parking ban at the city schools. We typically work in conjunction with all of our partners, Board of Ed, traffic and parking, DPW parks, when we're going to lift the ban. Because the thought process is when we do lift the ban, we need people to move out of the school lots so we can then go in and clean up the school lots. So there is a lot of coordination that goes into this. And parking bans are not taken lightly at all, but they are a necessity in our city for the ability for us to plow. And compliance is very important there. So some of the facts I wanted to bring up was during Benjamin, we did a tag and tow on 574 vehicles, and during Calvin, it was 904, and that was over a 9-day period for each storm. It's important to note that this is done with a relatively smaller crew of towers and TTMP PEOs. And I want to talk about two things with that. So we have 12 tow companies on our revolving list, and TTMP relies on those 12 companies. They are only required to give us, and I say give us, let us work with one tow truck per call out. In the storm, most of them did give us two, but it is still, you're working with a small pool of towers that then have to bring a vehicle, set it all up, bring it to a designated lot, and then go back out. It's a lot of back and forth. It is also a challenge once the cars are covered in snow because they have to somewhat clear the car and dig it out to get some of the towing done. They cannot just bring a car that's got a foot of snow on top of it and drag it down the street. So there's a lot that goes into that. They also, I can speak and afterwards I can let you guys go into a little bit more. We are limited in space in what we can tow. So once we tow, the yards fill up. And I know there's been some conversation about us taking on, but it's important to note that people need to be able to get their cars back. So if we were to say use a abandoned school as a place to tow cars, we would have to staff that for people to be able to come and get their vehicle and prove that they paid their fine and go through the process that they would go to at one of these tow yards. So there is a lot more that goes into it. We can't just take a vacant lot and say, we're gonna dump all these cars in one place, because somebody may walk out and say, oh my God, I need my car to get to work, and they can't be chasing it, right? We've worked hard over the years to try to make that a streamlined process. And I know that there's always challenges, but we have to be conscious of that. Additional considerations that we wanted to go over, and there's a video on the next slide. I actually took this video of one of our tighter streets that shows what that is. Now this is a one-way street, which is why they're on the left, but you can see that pushback is this, right? It isn't necessarily rubbing the curb because we don't want to slam the plows into the curb. It's the widening of the street. And while the video does stop, as they come around the corner, what you would note is that there's cars on both sides of the street, which make it challenging for pushback, right? This is important because some of the questions that have come to my office specifically is, you guys, the departments haven't done pushback to the curb. We don't want the plows rubbing up against the curb, right? So pushback means to the parking space, right? It means widening the street. It does not necessarily mean we are literally clearing the curb itself, right? So there is a fine line there. It's also important to note that with our DPW, much like our parks, we're limited to 16-hour shifts, right? We don't, and these folks do need a break, and they do need a cup of coffee, and they may need a restroom, right? They may need to get fuel for the truck. So some people were calling and saying, oh, the truck is leaving the neighborhood, whatever it was, right? We've heard a lot of different things, but we need these drivers to be safe. One of the stories that I brought up, and that the director, Siciliano and I were talking about is, once the sun comes out, the kids come out. And we don't want the plow drivers being exhausted, wheeling these things around a bunch of kids with a sled or having a snowball fight. So we need to keep in mind that 16-hour shifts are long, and that is why we need to give them an 8-hour break. Now, there is a coordination that has to go into that as well, because relatively quickly, you need to go right back to picking up the trash too. So it's a challenge to make that happen. So typically the way that it works is our streets division works for 16 hours in the DPW arena. The streets division works for 16 hours. They leave for an 8-hour break. There's an overlap where the refuse, correct me if I'm wrong, the refuse folks will work an 8-hour plowing shift and then do an additional refuse shift. And then you'll bring back the streets crew for another 16 hours. So it is a scheduling, it is a threading of the needle to make sure that the trucks are out there working and that other city services within the same department are not falling off. We also average vacancies, right? We have an average of 4 vacancies between the streets division and the refuse division. So we're filling those positions as best we can. And then that also goes for parks where they stagger their crews as well. And those crews also have to help backstop some of the DPW crews. So it is a threading of a needle to try to make sure that the crews stay out, but also we're giving them the appropriate time to rest because it is an exhausting task. Okay, so it's important to note that we need to stay fiscally responsible when we're doing storm work. As you see, these storms have put us significantly over budget. So for snow overtime, you're looking at just over $500,000, and that does not include the payroll that was processed this week. All right, salt and weather monitoring services are $335,000 plus. Our Cherry Hill services are significant. That's our contractor who helps us both plow. So they typically have 8 plow trucks that they supply that are out there with our crews supplementing, and then also snow removal. We are awaiting the final total, but you can see the totals up there. And so that puts us generally over budget in snow related expenses by $1.1 million. So that's being as fiscally responsible as we possibly can while still making sure that our roads are clear, and that is significant. I also want to point out the table. So one of the things that came up during Winter Storm Benjamin was the responsibility of folks when it comes to a bus stop. And I'll talk first about Connecticut Transit bus stops. Connecticut Transit bus stops, there are, how many? I forget.
900.
Yeah, I was gonna say 800, but it's 900 bus stops around the city. Only about 120 of those bus stops see a ridership of greater than 20 per day. So what we did was we found bus stops that had a high level of ridership, and there's extreme differences. So our highest bus ridership is over 1,000 per day, and we're hovering more in the 20 to 30 to 50. What we did was we worked with our emerge crew to try to determine our busiest that aren't on private property or adjacent to a business that we know helps clean the bus stops. And we sent them out to at least make them accessible for somebody who required an ADA access. That was our goal. So you could list some of those. Some of the other things that Emerge did was assist with our crossing guard areas around the schools. So that was a priority for us. So the Emerge crew was very helpful in going out, but remember that's only one crew and they're limited to how much they can work and get done. And that's literally shovel work, right? I mean, that is hands-on shovel work is what we've asked them to do. And so
Just explain the Emerge group.
So the Emerge crew, Beck, do you want to go into it's?
Sure. We've got a longstanding partnership that we started under ARPA with Emerge. They will focus mainly on our street sweeping program, but in the off season, the smaller crews that are on for this time of year, they help us with different projects, and we're able to utilize that contract to help with these shoveling. So Emerge, for those of you who don't know, is a reentry program. They do job training and coaching. So several days a week, they are with us for half the day, working mainly hand work in the curb strips, carrying cat stations, etc. So shoveling fits right into that.
The Emerge crew helps us year round, and they are an awesome tool for us to be able to keep our DPW staff plowing and our park staff plowing and removing the high level stuff, and they're able to help us in areas where we just don't have capacity to work. And so they've been immensely helpful. But remember, it's one crew, right? And that's what we have access to. So it's something that we really like, but it's a small group. So I know I have spoken to several of the others about the responsibility of residents. A lot of this can be found on the city's website, including the snow brochure, what to expect in a storm, snow emergency routes, which is something that I think is important to note. Snow emergency routes are specific roads around the city. And when we talk about the parking ban, a lot of times you'll hear snow emergency routes, and a lot of our enforcement focus has been on primary areas and then snow emergency routes. So our downtown snow emergency routes, and then into the neighborhoods. Some of the things that we talk about is the street parking when there's a ban, where you can park. Some areas are no parking on either side, primarily the downtown area. Some are no parking on the outside. Am I saying this right? Okay, thank you. Everybody does, right, I say it to myself every time. So we also request that residents and businesses remove their snow within 24 hours from their sidewalks. So there is a potential for violation. Our code enforcement crews from DPW are able to go out and do that enforcement. Remember again, that's 2 to 3 people that are doing the entire city. So we prioritize where they are, and I'll go into some of their numbers as well. But it's 24 hours. The other thing is a ban of shoveling and snow blowing back into the streets from the sidewalks. And that is something that one of the photos I'll show you was a thing that the DPW and parks crews that were out plowing brought up regularly. Ban of contractors leaving snow in the streets. We understand that they have a job to do. One of our bigger partners, I saw them plowing, and they were leaving these strips in the street. So I looped around the block, and by the time I got back, they had come and plowed and cleared them. That's acceptable. It's understandable. It was a lot of snow. It's when these contractors leave it in the street or block someone else's driveway, or as one of the phone calls I got, they were nice enough to clear their sidewalk and dump it onto somebody else's sidewalk, right? And so those are things that we do take seriously, and our enforcement crews were out there. And then again, we do recommend that our folks in the community engage in our emergency notification system, because it is something that we utilize on a regular basis, and we can isolate to a neighborhood. So when we're doing snow removal, we can isolate to that neighborhood for a parking ban or for specific information. And there's a lot of other things well beyond storms that we like to share and keep people informed on it. And so it is a helpful tool for us. Continuing with that, we want to make sure that people, when they clear the snow from their parking spaces, that they clear it back. The goal is back onto their property, not onto their sidewalk, but back onto some level of their property and not into the street. If they can help a neighbor, definitely help a neighbor. I know there's a few people, especially right here, that help their neighbors, and we appreciate that. But we also want people to remember that their property is their property. So if there is a fire hydrant, we would love if they helped us clear it. If there is a bus stop on their property, it is technically the responsibility of the property abutting to help clear that bus stop. Now, we will do our best, but it is ultimately that responsibility. And we do want to make sure that our ADA ramps are also kept clear. And those are the curb cuts in the corners where we have stop lights and you know, where you see the ramps. We want to make sure that those are a priority for people, because we do have a lot of people who do take advantage of our city, right? And so I wanted to point out here that during Calvin, we issued 100, let me actually back up. During Benjamin, we issued, because this is important, we issued 268 warnings for public space. So those are violations of people not clearing the snow or dumping snow, contractors dumping snow into the streets, and they issued 32 citations. During Calvin, the number flips a little bit, and we issued 149 warnings and 78 citations. And that was because the storms were so close. Many of the citations that Cynthia and Mike gave out were because they issued a warning during Benjamin and they were behaving the exact same way. And that was noted because, having talked to Cynthia personally, she said that they made a point to go back to a lot of the people that they issued warnings on because we do always try to give a warning and then do a follow-up. Some people, it's an educational, right? It's letting somebody know. In many of these cases, it was a blatant disregard. And so they were issued the fines to the max, and we continue to do that. Additional best practices, and this is one of the things that we continuously bring up, is if you are clearing your car and you're parked on the side of the street, push it into the strip of what we call the planter strip, right? It is that, in most cases around the city, it's the grass, tight little grass area between the curb and the paved sidewalk. The tree line is another way, yep. So I want to turn your attention specifically to these photos because I want to discuss this. So the left photo, it's hard to see from this distance, but there is an entire pile of snow in the middle of the street. This was sent to me by the fire department. And it was 1 hour after the plow came through that neighborhood because they were there. The fire department saw it. If you look, there's about 3 to 4 cars that are completely dug out, and the resident dumped all of the snow back into the street. So this is one example where the fire department actually witnessed and said, just so you know, we saw the plow come down here, we drove back shoveling hydrants, and this is what the street looks like an hour later. The other street, we received numerous complaints about the street on the right. And in multiple cases, we were receiving a lot of complaints like this. So we were dumping resources based on the level of complaints. That is what was found when we sent our resources to check the complaint. So it's important to know what the difference between an emergency and a desire are. So we received more than one call about that street. That took away a plow and a supervisor to go inspect why we were getting these calls. And when we found that was a diversion of our resources. And so one of the things that we're in talks about, and I'll follow up at the end about, is defining an emergency for the folks that call into whether it's the EOC or our PSAP center. And really, almost like what we do with a 911 call, I'll use the word interrogate the caller a little bit more to find out what the concern actually is. In this case, it was that the snow wasn't pushed back far enough for cars to park, but that street, by my definition, looks pretty good, especially since it's not a thoroughfare by any stretch of the imagination. It is a relatively small street.
And one way.
And one way. So it's important to know when we do get these calls and we do divert our attention, the attention gets removed from something else, right? So we can go continue that. So at the end, I wanted to point out that some of the improvements that we talked about going forward, we are constantly working at filling vacancies. So Parks Department, TTP, DPW, we are regularly filling and regularly hiring for those positions, but we do have attrition regularly. We have talked with Director Siciliano. One of the things that came up was we have a very young workforce at DPW, almost, I'm guessing, well, more than half. We're not here for Nemo. They were not here for Juno. They have not plowed this amount of snow. And the best training is doing it in that instance. We give you training, but it's very different when you're out in whiteout conditions in a really large truck with cars all over the place trying to push this amount of snow. I had the luxury personally of having done it once, and it is far more challenging than it looks, right? And so we are talking about updating training and doing more training, but it's really hard without the snow on the ground and the wind blowing and the whiteout conditions to get people really comfortable. We also, prior to this workshop, had set up an after-action review after Benjamin. So we were preparing to put all of the teams together to do a review of what worked really well, what needs improvement, and what areas we can do better on, right? I mean, everything that we do, we can always do a little bit better. And I think we, throughout both storms, all of our teams that are present here, worked really, really hard to keep track of the things that we did well, so we can, acknowledge the people who did that, but also keep track of the things that we need to improve on. We're also, as I said, working on defining what diverts a plow. So we may have a plow, I'll use downtown. We may have a plow that's assigned to Temple Street, and someone calls on Worcester Street. Maybe that's the same district. I can't picture it right now on the top of my head, and a resident calls and says, I'm stuck on Worcester Street. Now we're diverting the plow across downtown to get to that emergency, and I say that in quotes. What we're talking about moving to is making it where the only thing that diverts a plow is a request from PD, FD, or EMS. Because a lot of the requests claim emergency, only for us to find it certainly was not. GPS tracking, we're working on updating that entire system. To be honest with you, I would like to thank our engineering department because they've been immensely helpful with some of that. We need to evaluate our snow removal budget. We have to remain fiscally responsible. And so while there's a lot of wants, we also need to remember that there's 350 other days that we have to do really good work around the city. Synchronizing our TT&P schedule with DPW. Our TT&P folks work 2 shifts, right? They split between 2 shifts. They typically aren't working I can tell you, they're never working at 3 in the morning when a crew might be swapping at DPW. So we've talked to the deputy director and director of TT&P about syncing up schedules when we do have a superstorm or a major storm with our TT&P and DPW folks so that their shift starts the same and ends the same, so that it allows better synchronization with that. And as I said, we next week have a meeting scheduled with our entire team beyond this in the EOC to review all of our storms this year, which is not out of the norm for what we do. We actually just moved that meeting up because we have seen the influx of snow this year and thought it was important to do it while it was fresh in everybody's mind. So that concludes my presentation. Do you want to ask questions of us first and then go to Board of Ed? Or do you, because I know Dr. White also has some information.
How many more presentations? Is it just Dr. White?
It's Dr. White.
I'd actually like to hear, and then we'll open it up, because I think the Board of Ed plays a critical role on many aspects. So let's do you have a presentation or?
I do. I'll load up, but really want to focus on just one particular area of it, just how the process works for us. Obviously, with the indication that there's going to be a snow, I consult with EOC and with CAO to see what we need to do. Check the third slide. And so work with that, and then we work with all contractors. We have 3 current, back one. Go ahead.
Okay. I got the hang of it after a bit.
So once we have that, I meet with our facilities management, which is ABM. They will to determine what our strategy is. One of the things we had done over the years as one of our cost monitoring measures has been we announce to contractors when they can go out. Because one of the things that happened prior to my arrival, there were times when contractors were out for floods. And so one of the things we make sure is that we've discussed, and this of course is after I've discussed what's the times happening when DPW is deploying, then we make sure our contractors are ready to muster and get their people out. One of the things we do for accountability is have our building managers check the work after the contractors have been out. So the first ones in the building night to tell us what's been done, what hasn't been done, what needs to be corrected, and sending back out contractors to work on those areas. And also, we've been having these, we've created this is basically one of the sheets we use to do an inspection report. And then we have conversations with the contractors based on what we've seen, whether things will perform correctly. Obviously, you'll get the calls. We'll either get a call from Chief McCarthy, Alders, or anyone about something that hasn't happened, or there's something not working, and we send the contractors back out. DPW has been fantastic helping us when we've had underperforming contractors or something wasn't has helped us when we've had underperforming groups or something wasn't done in time for opening. So they've assisted us, helped us get Davis School open when there was work not being done in time. All over the city, helped us clear lots. And a big part has also helped with the time after the parking ban, because residents have to get out, and that's when we have to try and come back and finish opening up. And while only 15 of our schools are designated parking ban locations, when the parking bans go into effect, residents use whatever school is nearby. So as Chief said before, some are heavily used, some less. For example, Martinez School, there were 40 cars there 3 days after as the parking ban lifted. So we had to keep coming in, and then a lot of work had to be done to have that parking lot ready for staff when schools finally reopened. In our decision around whether we're opening school, a lot of that goes with what's happening with the bus company, passable streets, and general safety for our students and staff. And then when we find problems, like I said, we keep sending back to get them to do whatever's necessary. When a contractor plows into the street, one of our contractors did receive a citation because they were plowing into the street, or they plowed across to a neighbor's yard, and we've been trying to address that so that we are good stewards of the work that we do on our side. And I think that's generally summarizes the things that happen on our side. Obviously, we always want to recover as quickly as we can, because we know for a significant number of our students, we provide at least 2 guaranteed meals for a significant number of population. So a 3-day closure was very difficult for us to do, but it was necessary because of the way the storm fell and the volume of it. We too are over budget because we did have to switch to snow removal as well, because usually it's just the clearing. But we had to open up space to make the corners and areas safer for our kids to come on the blocks, come off the blocks. One of the big things we've done this with Calvin was sending people back out to do cutouts, or aprons, I think is the correct term, so that there's a place for the car to pull up, let the student out, or the buses pull up on the streets. Some of the things we're going to be doing for the next round of the contractors is having each school label all of their drop-off and pickup zones and things like that, because while you'll pull up to a school, like let's take Edgewood School, for example, it would look like the staircase on Edgewood Avenue is where students would be entering, but they're entering on Yale. So it's making sure that people know which door, or a door may look like, oh, it's just an emergency door, no one uses it, but that might be where pre-K pickup is. So those are the things we're going to enhance to make sure properties are fully cleared so that it works for the students, the families, and everyone. I'll stop there so that we can.
Is there anything that anyone else wants to add?
One thing I want to add is, wasn't spoken about. There were, over the course of the storm on Monday, approximately 15 plow trucks stuck at one point or another, and which also created downtime for the plows. Overlapping, I'm not saying 15 were down at the same time, but you might have had 2 or 3 down at the same time before we could get our single loader to these locations to chain them, pull them out, and free them. It created a lot of downtime, and I reached out to multiple public works around our area, and they all confirmed they had the same challenges we did. So it was just that hard pack really was a challenge.
If I can, I want to add one more thing, and I meant to put it in the slide, and I realized with what Director Siciliano just said. It's important to note too that we get compared a lot, right? And you and I spoke about this a little bit. However, I'll use two streets in particular, right? In particular, Whitney Avenue and Dixwell in New Haven are ours, but when you get to Hamden, they're the state. And the state operates very differently from a plowing perspective than we do. So when you look at the state, if you're traveling on the highway during a snowstorm or on Dixwell Avenue, they pair up trucks, they drive dead straight, and they make no turns. And they go several miles down, whatever their route is, and they turn around and they go the same exact route right back. And they do that nonstop, back and forth, back and forth. Our crews operate having to do primary roads, then they have to one pass, get it down in the middle for the emergency vehicles, then they turn onto the side streets, then they turn onto some of our dead ends, some of our really tight small streets once there's an ability there. So I just bring that up to say a lot of the comparison that I did here was apples to pears, not necessarily apples to apples. So that was all, sorry.
Thank you for all this information. It's a lot of information. This is information that probably should have been shared on our calls from EOC to the alders for many reasons. I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of questions, committee members. We also, even though this is a workshop, I am allowing public testimony only because I think it's important that we hear from the public as well. We've received a lot of written testimony. You know, I have a ton of questions, as I'm sure my colleagues do as well, but I just wanna, just because this might be quick, it may or may not, but for Dr. White, Wilbercross is in my ward, and I constantly get complaints that the contractors push the snow across the street where there are homes and will obstruct their sidewalk once the homeowner has already cleaned, so they have to go back and clean it again. And this is a constant problem. I thought it was going to be fixed for this storm, and it wasn't. And I have pictures that residents have sent me that they were out for a third time shoveling because they pushed the snow across the way. So we need to address those problems. And I'm sure it's not the only school.
No, it is not. And that'll be something that we do need to streamline way. Like if it goes into C-Click Fix or VOT, I get that information and then we deploy plows to move that snow. So I think we do need to find a better way so that we can, that it can be reported. Like as soon as it's reported, we send someone back out. So that'll be something to work on.
And I was happy to hear that you actually hand out citations to contractors that violate our rules.
City does that.
Yes, Cynthia.
Yes.
Yep.
But to the plow, to our contractors.
Yes.
And why do we use contractors?
That's
For the Board
because
of Ed, this is specifically Board of Ed.
because there would be no way to get schools open and get our streets cleaned at the same time, just because the amount of work that has to be done. DPW Parks just scan the streets open, and then while we have 45 properties to get ready, there isn't a way to do all that, and it would be a budget of well into probably the $7-8 million to get the proper equipment, have enough staff to do that in a reasonable amount of time.
Okay, so can you, so is the contractor responsible for obviously the parking lots, the sidewalks, any walkways, corners, the aprons, all of that? Is that what?
Correct.
So our custodians don't do any snow cleaning?
The buildings that have working snowballs, they'll do like work right around the main entrances and put out ice melt and things like that. But primarily, we rely on contractors to do the bulk of the cleaning at the schools.
But again, sidewalks, walkways, and parking lots, and the aprons if they're at a corner.
Yes.
For handicap accessibility.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to open it up to my colleagues for questions. I do have more questions regarding y'all, particularly enforcement, so be ready. Because that is a topic I think that is extremely important, understanding what enforcement looks like, how enforcement is done, how are tickets, because I know, I called in a lot of cars, but I didn't see any tickets on any cars. So we need an explanation on is it a digital ticket? Is it a paper ticket? What is it? Because we're not punishing residents that are not obliging by the ordinance, by the parking ban. Sorry, not ordinance, parking ban.
Do you want me to answer that now, or were you opening it up? I just want to make sure
You know what, you have your notes, because that's, enforcement is big.
Yeah.
Regarding the parking ban more than anything. So I will hold off. I saw actually Alder Smith's hand first, if you don't mind. And then we'll move on to Alder North.
I'm just deferring.
Okay.
If I may,
Go ahead, Alder
thank you,
North.
Madam Chair, thank you, Madam Vice Chair. This was my number one topic, so if I can just add on and share, and I think this needs dedicated focus itself. This was a wonderful presentation. Greatly appreciate everything the city does. From my perspective, at least in my ward, my biggest complaints are with my residents, and they're following through the rules. I think part is an education issue. I didn't know these rules until I became an alder. Partly is an education. Education, let me do you sidewalk. It's not just in front of your house, but it's around the corner. It's the curb cut. We all have email blasts. We send them out. I reach about 600 families, but I can only reach so many. So between sidewalks and cars not being moved, how do we as a city do a better job of leveraging the tools we have to educate / enforce / punish with financial fines such that we create incentives that the next storm we don't have the same problem. So I would like to see us ramp up in some way communication and enforcement such that we create patterns of behavior that make the situation better every storm. And for me, I don't know what it would take, for instance, but we've got the parking ban goes into place. What would it take to stick a ticket on every car that's violating the parking ban?
From the start of
the parking ban, what would it?
It was at noon. We should be
What
out there.
would it take? We hire and I know it's probably not the specific question, but if I can sort of share it to the group, certainly we have, I think that we have lots of understanding of how your limited resources now, but what would it take resource-wise to do more tickets, to create more enforcement? I know you can't tell them, but what does it take for us to ticket people, to warn people when it comes to shoveling? What does it take to get those? I don't know if it needs to be different systems of notification, warning, citation, and revenue generating, is what I'd like to say. And then the second piece of this, if I can, is to maybe figure out how, as this crew can work with each alder who knows their neighborhood best and knows where we really feel that we need the attention, and wondering what it takes. Certainly Chair Festo was talking about this sidewalk, but really zoning in on the information that each alder has about where their problematic problems are. Make their comment, and the question is about how you, and I'll let others speak, how you track requests. Know how hard you're all working, but I have to say, I personally put in 5 or 6, and I don't think any got done timely. Specific requests. You're in the middle of a storm, but what is a reasonable expectation of a request, of a towing request, of a certain corner being done request, of a certain street being done request, of a priority bus stop being done request? I did all of those things, and none of them happened in what I thought was the time frame you all had shared to be reasonable. So, kind of what are reasonable time frames, and how do we track requests? And then the last thing is I would just like to give a very major shout out to somebody named Cynthia Rivera. Department of Public Works.
Code enforcement.
I didn't really understand how the code enforcement worked. I've had a certain sidewalk that I've had trouble with. It's a really important sidewalk. I was working with LCI. Eyes and Alder didn't even really understand who I should be calling. I just want to give a shout out that last night, she got an email at 8 o'clock last night. I had an email back by 7 o'clock this morning, and by 8 o'clock we were on the phone, and I think that it was taken care of today. So I would just like to give a shout out that have questions about how we can use those resources in the weeks after the storm, because right now through Cynthia, I hope we're going to deal with it. One very important, very problematic sidewalk. Snow's still there. We know who's still in violation. And kind of how can we keep, say, citations or orders or warnings going now to create incentives for the future. So just really want to figure out how we can optimize performance of all of these things. And I would love to be a partner. I'd love to learn what are appropriate requests, what are appropriate timeframes. You all are always communicative, so thank you.
Let's get an answer.
Thank you.
There were a lot of questions and statements. I want to make sure I'm answering them as they were provided to us, right? So the first component was communication on enforcement. We live in a highly dense city. I think other areas are impacted than others, of course, because they're highly dense than others. I think the challenge there for education, just speaking from a traffic enforcement component, is some areas have driveways and some do not, right? And so it's not always going to be the perfect scenario where we tell folks to move their cars and then they do, even though we have the schools open up. So I think from an equity standpoint, it can be challenging, right? So just laying that there. I think from an educational standpoint, we can sort of have more conversations with staff. I know you all have your community management team meetings, maybe that's a platform. Other meetings that you all may have or different universities, I think we can come up with creative ways to communicate a way to follow the guidelines that are put in place. In terms of parking enforcement, just to go back to that quickly, when we don't issue, when the mayor issues the parking ban, we do suggest that folks move their cars to the nearest city facility. In certain areas, that is not as close as it is to other areas. And so sometimes it's not realistic, right? And that's just the reality of the thing. So, you know, I don't think it's going to be a one answer to this. I think it's a multi-answer to this. And I don't think that one department's going to have the answer. I think it's going to take all of us to sort of find an answer to that. The second one that you asked, how do we work with each alder for the attention areas? From a TT&T standpoint, we hit the areas that are priority for DPW. So that is, of course, the major snow routes, and we focus on those first. And then they tell us which areas they're going to after that, and that's where we focus our attention on. So, I mean, we're following DPW's lead in terms of snow emergencies. That is what we're doing, is we're following their lead in terms of the areas that they can hit first, second, etc. So what is a realistic time frame to respond to the C-click fix? I think that's what you're asking about.
So one of the challenges is that changes over the course of the storm, and it changes based on other variables. So like Mike said, you know, when we were pulling plows out of the roadway, we couldn't give you guys any estimate as to when we'd get through that and be ready and done with pushback. Until we get through that, everything's clear to that emergency standard, it's hard for us to start chasing those onesies and twosies. An expectation on the ticketing, I love analogies, so I'll use an example that's fresh in our heads. Next weekend, St. Patrick's Day Parade. We budget an hour to do the muster area, which is, you know, five small roadways. And then it's another 2 hours to do the 1.5 mile course. So it is very slow work, and there's 900 streets in the city. So there's no way we can get to every street. So we triage based on those priorities, right? Those emergency routes that everybody takes in order to get to the hospital, to major employers, that the buses go down. We have, over the last 15 years that I've been involved, created a list of those frequent flyer streets that we know today are going to be a problem in the storm no matter what. Looking at you, Party Place. Like the number of times I've had to back out of Party Place in my career is exhausting. Those are the streets we know we need to get a jump on early, because if we don't, you're not going to get a plow down it, and it's just going to get even worse, and then you're not going to be able to get a tow truck down it, right? And then there are those streets that Mike calls in during the middle of the storm. Any street could be a problem in any storm. It depends on how people park. And yes, that there might be a car that's parked there that everybody's annoyed with because the plows have to go around it, and now it's not going to be perfect and look great. But you're still going to be able to get down that street. It's still going to meet that emergency standard. And we've got to prioritize those resources in the places where that isn't happening. And we see across the board at any given time.
But those are the cars who are violating the ban and need to at least be ticketed. And that is, what is it? Look, I mean, we put in a parking ban and went in, the mayor put it in for noon. At 12:01, someone should be checking if people have moved their cars or in the process, even 1 o'clock. Before the storm even hits, we should be enforcing. If we don't enforce, we're enabling.
So
and if we enable, then we may as well just, we don't need to meet with you. We don't need to call in these cars, because what's the point of calling in these cars then? What's the point of calling in EOC with violations that we see like we're asked to do? What's the point of that?
We do triage that data and then use that for decision-making in the future.
But do we ticket these cars?
So we ticket the cars that we are going to tow, right? Because we're up against.
Only the cars that are getting towed.
The cars that are getting towed do receive tickets.
Yes,
But
yes, because,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. Let's expand the analogy, because we're going to quickly get into street sweeping season. That's a chance where we can ticket vehicles that we don't necessarily have to tow, because they have the ability to change their behavior the next section of time street sweeping occurs. In this situation, we need to get that vehicle off the road. We have limited resources, so we only get so far. We get about 6 to 8 hours, about 200 cars, we get bogged down. We cannot then continue to ticket other people because it takes us so long to move those 200 cars off the city streets that are prioritized to open up the streets. I mean, I understand the concerns but in this case, in this season, we had 2 snowstorms. So yes, everyone's saying, well, if you ticketed them the first storm, they would have known to move. That could have occurred this time, yes. I can concede that. But our goal is to get the metal off the streets, and that chews up a lot of time and resources. Just enforcing and ticketing people doesn't accomplish the goal which we need to do to allow for the plows to move down and safe and efficient transportation throughout the streets.
So let's give another analogy, right? I think street sweeping is a good one. Any street sweeping route is 1/3 of a trash route, right? So that is about 1/21st of the city. It takes a crew of 2 parking enforcement officers the entire day to get through that. And you see similar compliance with snow bans that you do with street sweeping. So you'd need a crew of 2 times 21. So we would need 42 parking enforcement officers in order to get through the universe of streets in the period we have to do. We've got 10, and again, they're focused with the plows, which is taking 6 times the amount of time. And like the parade route's a great example, 2 hours to do a mile.
Madam Chair, can I just ask my follow-up question?
Yes, and then we need to.
Thank you. Which is, I appreciate what you're saying. So what does it take to do it? What does it take to have the capacity? We hire contractors for plowing. I don't know what the rules are for a ticket. I don't know. Alder Festa suggested she'd be willing to ticket herself. I'm sure she can't. But what does it take to up this capacity? It's revenue generating. I don't know how much it generates. What does it take to work with contractors to make this happen? I would wager, at least in my neighborhood, people would remember from year to year if they got ticketed. And I do appreciate the equity in certain neighborhoods. Ward 26, you can move to the other side of the street. And I was personally ringing doorbells and was about 20 cars. So You know, just what does it take to increase the capacity of the tickets?
The short answer is bodies. We don't have all of the bodies to hit every road, because like we had 2 teams of 2 and what was it, 4 teams of 2 out?
5 teams of 2 cover the posted snow routes. That's downtown, and 4 additional routes that take you directly in and out of the city and towards the hospitals.
Yeah.
That's 5 vehicles, 10 people. And then we get slowed down by the capacity of the tow companies that we have to utilize. And then plus the snow and then resources as far as our vehicle capacities.
So on the back of napkin math, you know, if we leave the TT&P crews that are currently on staff to do that, and again, we're trying to strengthen the length of shift, and we're thin there already, we would need additional 42 bodies. We don't have that standing capacity anywhere to draw from that are 42 bodies. So you'd have to increase the number of budgeted positions.
If I can also add to that, right, because there are external factors that we can't control, which are the tow companies and their capacity, right? So
I think the question was ticketing, but yes.
Yes, but all the things, right? Because we're talking about parking enforcement. And if you want ticketing and you want to see their cars move so that we can plow and it can be.
Or I'll start with ticketing.
Okay, ticketing. Okay, yep, so more bodies.
Tickets. Not at every.
So we do use PD officers from time to time. Again, we start mandating them for coverage on these long duration storms. We have used LCI staff to help supplement to get us additional depth for the TT&P crews, because they were going 12-hour shifts, double, you know, they were working 24 hours. So
Contractors or emergency crews you deputized? Can you deputize them?
No, they have to meet the definition of officer under the ordinance.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Though, one of the exceptions this storm, because we anticipated it, although it wasn't exercised, is the fire department writes tickets for blocked hydrants. That was a workaround where they would be able to write tickets if they could not get down a street. So we did work with that. It didn't need to be exercised, but that was one of the areas where we were able to expend a little bit of it, right? So we're trying to be creative with it, but we are limited because that process takes time. So now we're asking a fire truck to stop what they're doing to issue a parking ticket. And then I also come back to, I know a lot of times that there's the question of, well, can the PD help? And I bring everybody back to, we had, 200 police calls for 10 districts in the course of a 24-hour period during a winter storm, right? So it is to Director Simpson, Deputy Director Hoffman's, it's bodies.
But it sounds like we have some bodies. We have LCI, we have, and if the fire trucks are already going down streets to see if they can fit, they should be ticketing along the way.
Well, there is a union question there too, right?
You know what, it's all, we need to collaborate and come together during these storms.
I need to be completely transparent. That is a factor.
And I get it.
But also take into account, we are working to utilize LCI to help Cynthia Rivera, right? So we're limited in our LCI folks. We're trying to get them to help us more with the sidewalk compliance, the public space compliance. So we
housing code violations.
Right, because we do have housing code violations during the storms. So we're stretching a limited pool of people, and all we're doing is we're trying to tack on more. And one of the things that came up, I'll use it because it was fresh in my head. During, I think it was Nemo, and we were talking about this, somebody called in, and the conversation was, okay, I can pivot, but what are we not doing to pivot? And everything we pivot our current workforce to do means something they're supposed to be doing isn't getting done. So we need to be really clear about that, because overall, I could speak specifically to my departments, while TT&P falls under economic development, I work very closely with them. We've had to be, and I continuously go back, we have to be fiscally responsible. And in doing so, we have stretched thin a lot of our resources. So everything we ask additional of somebody needs to come from somewhere. right? There is not a workforce of people sitting around.
You know, what being, I think, the fiscal body,
Mhm.
and we understand that portion of it, but the residents don't. The residents want what their tax-paying dollars are going towards, so we have to remember that.
And I totally respect that, and I think that's where our city staff takes it very, very seriously, because all of the folks that are up here are working not just during these week-long storms, but they're, to point out, we were $1.1 million over budget. We have to figure that out as a collective, the body that's in this room, including us, right? So we are bringing that to everyone's attention. I think that's a message that needs to be relayed too, is we could, Director Siciliano and I talked about this, we could hire, Cherry Hill Construction is our vendor, right? They have unlimited resources. We could have put 100 trucks and they would have said, no problem. But the $1 million bill we got would have been $20 million, right? So we have to feather that, and we have to figure out where the sweet spot during each one of these storms is.
So because this was a state emergency though, shouldn't all boots be on the ground in the state help?
They don't during winter storms. They really haven't.
In the last 16 years that I've been involved in this, I've seen 2 winter storms reimbursed. One was Nemo, where we got 3 feet of snow, and we got. Then there was one winter storm that was a blazing event with a high level of power outages and substantial tree damage, and that one was reimbursed. We also are in a different political climate where FEMA isn't really operating right now. And when there's an emergency declaration that we do see reimbursement through, it comes through FEMA. So I would love to say, you know, we're anticipating getting money back for one of these storms, but it is very highly unlikely.
And just, you know, and I'll get to you, Alder Smith. Did we use all our city resources? And what I mean by that is, I had the privilege of going around with a plow dryer. I think I saw one Parks truck. So Director Webster, this might be for you. You know, we should have the smaller trucks working on the side streets, crosswalks, handicap ramps, bus stops. I mean, I don't know how many trucks we had, I mean, total number of trucks, but did we use all of our resources, including parks?
Yes.
And how many parks?
Max, would you exactly Dan?
And how many vehicles do we have? And how many did we use?
We had 37 trucks on the road.
DPW.
Yeah.
DPW with Parks and Cherry Hill.
How many from DPW, how many from Parks, and how many from Cherry Hill?
There were Parks, you've had 4 trucks with us, right?
We had 3 trucks this time, one of them was down.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we only have 4?
About 3 hours into the storm, and we sent it over to.
Parks has their own work. They can't work with us still storm.
Why?
They have their own responsibilities set.
So
I guess educate a few.
Yeah, so for instance, Parks' responsibility would be firehouses, right? So they need to do firehouse ramps, areas around the fire departments. That's one of their responsibilities. The area around the police department, parking for police cars, that's a Parks responsibility.
Yeah.
You want to go into some more, Max?
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, we do all the sidewalks around parks. We do, we clear spaces for, we prioritize clearing spaces for our program spaces where we have 2 senior centers that we cover, right? So making sure the senior centers can open as soon as they possibly can. We have the 911 tower on top of East Rock, right? So we got to keep that road open so that they can get up there. We have the tree calls that we're responding to citywide. So there's lots of different responsibilities that we're doing. But to the earlier point too, a lot of what we're doing is also working with smaller equipment to do some of that work, right? So our trucks may be driving out to an area, they're doing plowing along the way, they are assisting on some of the smaller streets, they are hitting priority spaces in parks, but then they have to drop off equipment. People are getting into that equipment. They're walking behind snow blowers. They're riding in track machines. They're doing all that stuff to then clear sidewalks and make those spaces passable, right? So you may not see a parked truck because somebody's in a piece of equipment, or they're shoveling, or they're doing all that smaller detail work that is not necessarily as visible.
It's also important to know. Sorry, Matt.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, so we had 25. We have 25 total trucks. 2 of them at the start of this, 3 of them were down at the start of the storm. So 23 that were down there. We have 1 Bobcat that we use a skid steer that was down for this storm. And then we have previously in the last storm, we had one of our Bobcats was actually stolen out of our yard, right? So that happens too, and people take advantage of those kinds of things, right? Within that, right, like the equipment that we have is good for, like, if you have a 3 to 6 inch storm event, right? Now you're talking about in this kind of event, it's 3 6-inch storm events on top of each other, right? So almost every single piece of equipment ends up breaking at some point in time during a storm, has to go back to our service yard, get repaired. Our mechanic staff are working 24 hours a day around the shop to get stuff fixed and back out there, right? So yeah, every single person, every single staff member, every single field crew member that we have was employed working multiple 16-hour shifts over the storm, both storms.
So how many total plow trucks do you have? And Mr. Director Siciliano will ask the same question of your department.
So working during the storm, we had about 25 plow trucks, with 4 of them assisting Public Works. I was in one of them for the entirety of the storm, but yeah. So what it essentially looks like for most of our crews when they go out is we'll send guys out, more than one person in a truck. We'll be bringing a trailer behind them that'll have some other piece of equipment in it. So the truck will go to a location, the truck will drop the trailer, it'll plow around the area that it's going to be working in. And another caretaker will take, a Kubota, a track machine, a Bobcat, something like that, and they'll work in a specific area. One other place that Max didn't mention is that we do all the bridges in the city as well, so all of the sidewalks that go over bridges. So what it really looks like for our guys is a lot less of driving in a straight line for miles and miles and miles. And it's you go to a specific place, you stop, you cover an area, you pack up your stuff, you go to the next place, you dismount, you cover that area, and then you just kind of move in a circle through a certain geographic area.
So does the park department have the same rules as DPW plows, where plow to the ground, plowed down at all times?
It's not a hard rule for our guys. It's something that we tell them to do. The one caveat that I'll give our guys is that our guys aren't nearly as experienced plowing streets. They don't know where all the manhole covers are. They don't know where the speed bump is going to be. So what it usually looks like for our team, and what I've seen and what I frankly do myself, is if we're driving down State Street and I'm in an F-150, I'm not going to, me putting my plow down doesn't do anything. But if I come across, an intersection where another plow is pushing snow out to the street, you clean that up as you kind of make your way.
Yeah, and certain of our vehicles, like we're not necessarily in the large vehicles that DPW has. So we're not capable of moving the amount of snow that they do. So if we put the plow down, it's at risk of damaging the equipment or downing the vehicle for the rest of the storm.
Also, number of the trucks that are on the road are trailering, and when you're trailering, it's very, very difficult to plow.
If we're pulling a trailer with equipment on it, yeah.
Alder Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all so much for this presentation and for being so responsive when I reached out during the storm. 2 questions, one around tracking performance of contractors, and the second around vacancies and increasing our capacity. So about tracking performance specifically, Dr. White, I know you mentioned the work order sheets, but curious more holistically how public schools tracks performance of contractors, and specifically what percentage of schools did contractors perform well, and what percentage of schools do they underperform? And how did that change from snowstorm Calvin to snowstorm Frederick?
I'd have to get back to you with the specific things because again, it's the iterative ones because it'll start with the first pass, then come back to the second pass. And again, anytime we see things happening or get a report, or even when I'm out, I'm looking at our locations and it's calling it back. For the most part, our contractors are responsive to change. One of our contractors we have to do more work with because their equipment doesn't seem up for the challenge we face, and we've gotten more complaints about things that related to that. So have those conversations about pushing through because we still have to get through the storms, get them working. But our building managers are the ones who really look and see what's happening when they're on site. And for the most part, we are ready. We always open ready for the school, and then again, continue to make corrections as we go through.
Thank you, Dr. White. And maybe just a nudge on that, just curious, even at a high level during one of the storms, do we have a sense of what percentage of schools performance was adequate and what percentage was underperforming and will mitigate in the future?
Yeah, I would say 70%.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. White. And relatedly, how do you describe what the next steps are to increase performance? I know you mentioned some things like including drop-off zones as part of the requirements for contractors, ensuring that contractors certainly have adequate equipment.
Yes.
Are there any other next steps that public schools are implementing for future storms?
Yes, as I said, making sure they're doing the cutouts, make sure they know where the pickup areas are, but also we have the conversation. We call in the contractors when they haven't performed to that level and have the conversation what we expect of them for the next storm, what we expect of them while they're still under contract, and the responsiveness, making sure that they come out on time. And when we don't see that, we have that conversation to do that. And going forward, we'll be continuing having the building managers, the principals, people able to let us know if something was done. As I said, I go out, it's 4 of us that are generally going out, and then as deputize a few others who are available at the time to check areas. And we need to do a little more work in streamlining how we synthesize that information, because we're getting it in and doing real time. As I get something, I'm deploying someone to do that work. But synthesizing that and making it easier for other people to report things, as Alder Festa suggested, those would be the next steps to clean this up better.
Thank you, Dr. White. My last question under this bucket is how many times did the city staff have to step in when a contractor was underperforming during one of the storms?
At some point in each storm, it's not necessarily about them underperforming and not being responsible. It's really about timing. Like, for example, Parks came through right as we had a situation at Davis School. We need the bus loop open. Within a few minutes, Parks was there, able to open up the bus loop so that by arrival day, we had a delay that day, so arrivals were able to be there. In each storm, they've also helped with just some of that cleanup. Like sometimes it may be just it's barely wide enough for a bus, but we need more work. Or the checking behind parking bans, like if our contractors have come through and there were cars still there, can we go back and see if this lot's empty? And if a lot is now empty, they've gone in and cleared. So they've been great partners for us in this.
Thank you, Dr. White. 70% is a concerning percentage, and I think in thinking about the city stepping in, it's tough to imagine us paying twice given its stretched capacity. But thank you for your answers. And my last question is about vacancies and increasing capacity. You mentioned that we have some vacancies in public works and parks, and curious, what are the limiting factors? Is it, do staff need a CDL license or another license? And I can imagine that takes a lot of time. Just curious your reflections on what's standing in the way, what's making it tough, and how we can support in that process at all to be able to fill those vacancies.
Yeah, so we have vacancies in various departments, right? So we work I know my office, HR, especially Deputy Director Bombero, who holds about 12 hats. We work on a weekly call to go through all the vacancies. They're prioritized, especially right now, we're prioritizing vacancies. We typically hover with some vacancies. I'll use DPW in our refuse department. Many of the people come in and they go to refuse. And then I don't want to, it's a stepping stone into the streets division. Some people prefer to stay for scheduling purposes or what have you in the refuse division. A lot of people would prefer to eventually get to the streets division. So there's a jockeying that goes on there. We lose people for a variety of reasons. It could be a better paying job. It could be that they matriculate to another department. We see it when, I'll be honest, we see it police and fire hire. Now we pull one or two DPW workers or parks worker. We just pulled somebody from the health department because really they wanted to work for the fire department or the police department, and they got their first job and they transitioned, right? So there's any number of factors. I think the vacancy thing is something that we're always going to have, right, in these types of jobs. To the other point, which is staffing, right, and actual positions, that's another question. And it's one of those things where we're looking at a very atypical storm season this year. So do we bring on staff, right? We have to balance how many staff we have for the workload we have for the rest of the year and try to balance that exactly right. We do supplement, so that's the point of bringing on the contractors. And that's the way we've done it, right? So we typically, in the last storm, have eight plow trucks, specific to plow, not removal, to supplement the crews that were out. Because the other limiting factor that we have is we could hire people, but every one of those people now needs a truck with a plow. And those trucks are a year out, and between, we just bought one, but you're between $250,000 and $305,000 per truck. So it's exponential. So it's finding that sweet spot. I don't think it's atypical. I'll look to Becky on this one, but I don't think it's atypical for us to have about 4 vacancies in DPW.
It changes. We've had a number of recent separations that were, I think, all but 2 offers are working through the process right now. There's been 2 recent vacancies, so Mike's hasn't had the time to do interviews while he's dealing with the snow. So once we get good weather, hopefully we'll get those 2.
There were 4 hired recently.
Yeah.
Process going through,
But that's
pre-employment. Testing, so.
To the other point you brought up, yes, CDLs are another thing. So it limits your workforce, right? The pool of people that we can pull from its requirement to have the CDL, and it's not something that's easily obtained. So we work through that regularly, and so it's something that we have to thread, because unlike the private sector who could anticipate a vacancy and start hiring for it, we are position for position hiring. So you need the vacancy to be open to hire in that process. So there is always that gap period.
If I could add, I do, when I do interviews for new employees, I do ask them if they have any snowplow experience. And that's a check for them if they do, because I look for that. It's hard to find though.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alder Smith. Alder Martinelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So what I'm hearing from a standpoint of, I'm going to go back to the residents not moving their vehicles, as that's what I saw a lot in my ward. About 5 hours after the ban, I would say 95% of my streets were filled with cars still. And I understand the limitations of the city. Is there, and this might not be the proper, but so out of this almost $2 million that we're over budget, is a lot of it wasted time because the streets are not cleared of cars? And then my follow-up to that, is there a way we can incentivize the residents to do the work of moving their vehicles versus, having a fire, having something that is going to be costly in the long run I guess, is there something that we could do on, like, I could do on my end that would be helpful to have each resident try to move their cars? And I'm, I know you've been doing it for 16 years, and I'm kind of new to this. Is there a way that we can kind of motivate the residents to take on this responsibility?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things there. So I'll talk first to, when our crews get there, if the cars are blocking, they make a decision to move, and the supervisors will help them make that decision. And in a couple of cases, that had to happen. So we might have budgeted to do a snow removal, and cars showed up, and we don't have a tow truck available, we'll loop back around, we move, we pivot. So as far as sitting, waiting, wasting time, I don't think that's necessarily happening. And as far as the fire department goes, we require them to check every single hydrant during a storm, so they have to do it. I check. So that won't change, so they're kind of our best eyes and ears out there. So to that point, as far as support from people, I'm gonna say there has to be a level of neighbor shaming a little bit.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Of, hey, can you move your car, right? She's laughing, so I'm point to it. We talked to Alder Festa, right? Some of it is a little bit of neighbor shaming, and I at one point I lived in that ward, right? So I know a specific street in your ward where it was a challenge, and people routinely would say, like, when they saw the person, hey, there's a parking ban, right? And that little nudge of that. We do support the alders. I know a lot of you have email blasts and things like that, starting earlier, right? And doing it throughout the street sweeping period and then into the snow period, and maybe educating to what the value is of the parking ban, right? The parking ban is not there because necessarily we want the streets pretty. We want the streets passable for emergency vehicles and for, as soon as the storm's over, people to get back to their lives as quickly as possible, right? It's not for aesthetics. There's a lot more to it. So the short answer is just continual education. And, there are a lot of new people in our city. We know that. And a lot of people who may have grown up with a driveway who now don't have one and don't understand the importance of helping us help them. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I wanted to take accountability of potentially adding to the delay of the crew getting started, because this is where we need to do better in terms of coordinating with our schedules, because, by the time our crew gets out there, we're waiting on the tow truck companies to get there. By the time we clear the streets, they don't see the plow trucks coming. They just move their cars. I mean, I was out there this storm and literally witnessed it. Like, staff said, this is what's happening. I'm like, witnessed it, right? Like, we moved the entire block of cars and then they didn't see any plow truck coming. They just moved right back. So I do think just taking accountability, we can do a better job of just coordinating to make sure we don't cause any delay on anyone to get the job done. But that would also take some added effort from tow truck companies to make sure they have the capacity, they have the trucks, they have the ability to move all the trucks, all the cars or vehicles that are there to make sure DPW and their contractors can get the work done. So.
I just wanted to add that this last storm was a little unique because, Friday morning I had folks calling me because they think I'm the weather gal, asking me about, what we were going to get. And it said 4 to 6 inches at that point. I'm saying, yeah, it actually looks like it actually might miss us completely. And then by 3:30 Friday, it was like 20 inches, just kidding. So that kind of messed with our messaging, even at City Hall, letting folks know, bring your laptops home, stuff like that. This storm happened so quickly, so the messaging was a little bit shortened. The news cycle, we didn't get out to do press until Saturday, stuff like that. So I think in the future, just being able to push that message out faster about the parking ban could be really helpful. And another thing that's on my list is I don't know all of the city, as well as someone who's maybe works for the fire department or something, or who's all over the city. I'd like to put on a map all of the locations of parking locations of where folks can go. I think that would be really helpful. So especially in the EOC, if they say, hey, I live on this street, I can tell them the closest parking lot. I'm thinking that would incentivize folks if they had a better answer of where to go instead of here's a list to go through and you go Google everything. Maybe just put it on a map. So that's on my list to do here soon, or at least my intern. She doesn't know it yet. But additionally, something we added this storm because we knew it was such a quick turn was PD. They had over the loudspeaker letting folks know that there was a parking ban. And I hope that that was helpful to some folks, and I think we'll probably implement that in the future. Parking bans are not like street sweeping where folks know every Tuesday you have to move your car, something like that. Parking bans happen maybe 2 or 3 times a year, so it's not muscle memory. So it is a lot of education. Folks may have just moved to a location where they can only park on one side of the street, so it's going to be a lot more messaging. But we did send out also some economic development folks, some LCI folks went out door knocking. They went to different businesses, letting folks know as well, and they came with a list of parking ban locations of where folks can move their car. We could probably do that again if we have more notice, gather those folks up and see if we can't get some more door knocking done as well. Not everybody signs up for New Haven Alerts. A lot of people, I get complaints that we over message. I think the messages are helpful, and a lot of people, I get that feedback as well. We have about 45,000 people signed up for New Haven Alerts, but there's 130,000 people in this city, and that doesn't even include people who are just here working during the day. So I think there's more that we could reach through New Haven Alerts. I think that would be a really helpful addition and helpful push in the future. Is if you want to know what's going on, that's the best way to know. But we did have those PD announcements. We did have some door knocking, but I think that map is really going to help. But if you have any other ideas of sort of as we talk about resident education, not only around parking ban, but some other stuff, maybe I'm thinking of updating my website because a lot of people, that's where we direct them to. That's where you sign up for New Haven Alerts. So as you think of some additional education around this or resident responsibilities, we'll try and put that on there too.
And I just want to make that clear because the residents have a responsibility too. I know that, I actually wrote notes and put them on people's cars as well. So maybe and knocked on doors. But, back in the day, and I guess we did use speakers to warn people because I didn't hear it. Because during NEMO, I remember bullhorns out announcing, the bands, et cetera. So maybe we need to do more of that. Mm-hmm. Do we have a QR code to? Okay. Yes. Okay. So we have a QR code. Is it possible to put them on door knockers, and maybe we can hang them up, or if we do see a car that's still parked, we can slap one on their car. Yep. We have a lot of new developments. Let's reach out to the management teams of these developments and I don't know if they have information billboards within their developments, and stick the QR code on there. We have the bike, the city bikes, what are they called?
Bike share.
The ad, the bike share ad, the kiosk thingies. Yeah. Let's slap a QR code on those. Put it on the tax bill.
We have in past years put it in the auto tax bills. It's been a while since we did that. We always forget to do it in the summer when they go out. There is a November bill, so I'll put it in my calendar to remember next November. Everybody throws them away in the July bill.
So anyway, there are things, and I'm sure if we got together with my colleagues on the board, we could come up with a collective.
We are meeting next week. If you have any ideas, please follow up to us. That's actually the task for our teams.
Just for time, and I probably made a mistake. I should have had the public speak first. But we do have one person, and I want to get to him. But before, Alder Moore has some questions, and then maybe we can, wrap it up. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, Madam Chair, it's fine.
I'm
It's so late, it's fine.
You know what, hold up. Alder Martinelli was
No,
not done.
it's really not.
No, go finish your questioning. My apologies.
No,
I
no,
should
it's
have
really, I'm really okay. Thank you, though.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Alder Moore.
First of all, I just want to thank everybody. This was the storm of the century, and you guys were out there, and your resources were limited, and you were tired, and you were working really hard, and I saw that firsthand. My question is a little bit ward specific, and it's not because I don't care about the rest of the city. It's because my ward tends to be more suburban, so we have a little bit different problems. We have a lot. It's things are more spread out horizontally. We have a lot more commuters who are commuting to various places at various times, and a lot more homeowners. And so one of the things I saw was a lot of streets that were impassable. And so I know I've listened to everything you guys have said. I understand all the different extenuating circumstances. And I guess my question is for the geographical area in which I represent. Is there a way to clear those impassable streets quicker? Because what I was seeing was there was a lot of them stacking up, and we had folks who were nurses or first responders trying to get downtown, trying to drive places. Public transit was not an option. And I'm just wondering, is there a lesson learned there, or a specific string that we can pull? I know you talked about a sweet spot between Cherry Hill and buying, renting, or contracting. Is there something that we could do differently to try to move and clear those streets a little bit quicker?
Yeah, maybe offline, if you can give me those specific streets, I can speak directly to two in Ward 18 that we did send folks to, because we did receive specific requests. In one case, the street was actually passable by our standard. So I would love to hear a little more specificity of where it was, so we can isolate it a little bit more. I know we did have a challenge in Ward 17 with one of our plow drivers getting stuck for a pretty significant amount of time. That was the one on Nealon, and so
that was 18.
Yes. The area was 18?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I got stuck there myself.
Yeah, so we did have that, which was on Nealon.
My condolences.
Yeah, we did have that significant issue, and there was another area. 100% positive the one I'm thinking of. The other area is in 17, so on the other side. So
and that's fine. I mean, I'm happy to have a conversation with you directly. If it's more efficient and productive, I know we have people waiting.
Yeah, no, I would be happy to try to isolate that, because then we can work together with the DPW on the route itself, because that might need focus.
Okay. And then my other question, this is my last question, is that in this improvements moving forward document, you indicate the requirement that plows are diverted for PD, EMS, FD only. I just want to make sure I understand what that means. Does that mean that residents would not be able to call into EOC, or are we talking about something different?
No, so they would be able to call it EOC, but one of the issues that we had is, just like our plow staff not being accustomed to this storm, several of our staff at EOC weren't accustomed to working this storm at this level, right? Because we've had turnover in the last 10 years since we've had a significant storm. What happens is people will call in and state, I have an emergency. I'm trying to go to work, okay? We need to identify what an emergency is, because we have 22 snow routes, 30 plus trucks, right? When somebody says they have an emergency and we divert a truck out of its normal path of its route, now it has to figure out how to they need to coordinate the plowing, right? So it's set up in a way that we plow in a more of a methodical way. As we're calling over the radio and saying, John Smith just called, he's a doctor, he lives at XYZ, he needs to get out right now. Now we might be diverting a plow across their district, their area. That's not a medical emergency, that's not, right? So if everything is an emergency, nothing is an emergency. Right? And so that, unfortunately, I think the triage of our, and I'm going to put it as emergencies, and Kayla keeps good track of this, the director of plan, in Biochi, if you look at them, many of the streets were passable, so it was not an emergency, right? Many of them were related to things that 100% we would get to, but it was in an unreasonable amount of time. I mean, the call started less than 5 hours after we had plows out on the streets, right? And so we're trying to do main thoroughfares and somebody's saying there's X, Y, Z happening. As soon as we start diverting, it's taking us out of the pattern that is designed to get this work done. So the point of what that slide's saying is we should really identify emergencies through the police, fire, or EMS. They should be the ones. At one point, we had 2 ambulances stuck with patients in them. That is an emergency. That requires a plow truck, a supervisor, a loader to converge on that ambulance. And that happened multiple times during the storm. That warrants that kind of attention, right? Not, I need to get to work, right?
So just to clarify, you're looking at an internal protocol change for your EOC to try to triage actual, put resources where they need to be as urgently as possible. But that doesn't mean you're not going to take calls from constituents who actually have a legitimate, impassable street that are just trying to flag it for EOC. Those people are still going to go in the queue, right?
They'll always go in the queue.
Okay, that was my.
No, the EOC is always staffed, and we will always take. This is where the ability to we use our cameras a lot, right? Our camera system.
I request, and when I'm called by a constituent or text, I'm like, well, send me a photo. That'd be the best way to do it, and then I can see what it is, so I can try to prioritize them. So it's the same thing, right? You want eyes on it, yeah.
And that's where we've talked about, in the future, can we deploy a drone? Like that's the future, right? We aren't at that point. We just aren't. So pictures are our best tool, and we do ask people to do that and send that in. But it's understanding the word emergency is interpreted differently by different people.
I got you. Thank you very much.
I haven't seen a plow. Well, I can tell you, I have it on camera. A plow went down that street. I can actually see blacktop. So you've got to also filter out some of the noise that you're getting, because we get a lot of constituents calling in to EOC, my street hasn't been plowed. It's like, well, your street's been plowed. It's not necessarily what you want to see right now, but we have to make sure we get to the street that really hasn't been plowed. And if I'm sending a plow back, a supervisor back, those are not there doing the other streets.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
If you don't mind, I'd like to add one thing with that. As we're trying to work towards improvements here, I would like to, in our after action meeting next week, talk through some FAQs or some things for training for those folks who are answering the phones in the EOC. I myself am guilty of it too. I probably am letting residents or maybe even alders think that maybe we're going to get to something more quickly than we are. And just being able to set across the board expectations of where we're at and being realistic, even if that maybe doesn't make people super happy at the time. So some FAQs and just some answers of where we're at, level setting of where we are and what's realistic. And if we can't give a time frame, don't guess, stuff like that, which I was trying to do myself. I want people to I want to give answers, but if you don't have them, you don't have them. So I want to pull that together to give residents and alders answers on that line. And then additionally, I would like to consider in the future, and I'll let the other departments tell me no, but some phases, maybe, break out the storm in phases as to where Public Works is in the phase and what's reasonable expectations within that phase. Same with traffic and parking, our different departments. And then, maybe it's 3 or 4 phases, and by the end we'll be in recovery and what that means. And that's something that we could be able to provide to the alders. So you have an idea of more reasonable expectations. That's something I would like to pull together. I haven't been able to bring it up in our after action meeting next week, but I'm hoping that's something that we can pull together and then give better expectations in the future.
And I think on that note, I think one of the things to remember is we're all the folks sitting at this table are working as a system. Mm-hmm. So like one of the things in See Click Fix or DOT we get, the car is over here. TTMP is enforcing lockstep or ahead of DPW. our resources are dedicated to help and assist them at that time. We don't have an extra person to send to that other thing. I think one of the things to keep in mind is all of these systems are working together at the same goal at the same time, or at a delayed starting and ending period. But during a phase, as the emergency management director said, we're moving together at the same goal. We don't have the resources to go off. We have a game plan that we're trying to do to get this event moving and rolling along.
Is it?
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. It's a separate topic and, just to flag it. Just about downtown snow clearance, if I may. Downtown a lot, as I look downtown, we got to a point where if you looked up, you thought it never snowed. There was like so much snow removed from downtown. I mean, it was sort of great, but sort of wonder kind of how you make the choice, how much snow to be removing versus sort of leaving, saving resources, diverting those resources. I would sort of find that I was downtown where it sort of felt like it didn't snow. Some of the sidewalks and streets were so clear. And then I head towards my neighborhood where we didn't have like curb cuts at like intersections the kids were going to for school. So just to flag out there for sort of how we balance that question.
So there's a couple things there. So downtown, number one, we have a lot of contractors managing the spaces, right? So you have contractors in front of City Hall, you have contractors in front of the library, contractors in front of the financial center, and the list goes on and on and on. You have Town Green, who's also supplementing our clearing and working with us, right? So I talk to Win Davis about how you're gonna clear, so that we're gonna come in and remove, so pile it up here, right? So there's a lot of coordination that goes into downtown. The other thing is downtown, we did it at night, so we did it overnight. It's all expensive.
Okay.
Oh, no, it's all expensive. But we did not want to have trucks idling and backing up and backup alarms and all this other stuff in the neighborhoods. So we were trying to jam a lot into the 8-hour workday while the streets are a little more clear in the neighborhoods. And then overnight, it's like Tweed, right? It's a runway. You can move the trucks around, you can do things, and at night, we're giving them pockets. So it's based typically on time and then the number of streets we give them. So if we're able to say, we need you to do Grove from State to Tower Parkway. If they can get it done and if there's no cars, they can get it down to the pavement, right? And we want them to because we're paying for that service. We want that street clear and we want them to work continuously. So a lot of it has to do with that.
And all the walkers downtown, you can't have a tight sidewalk, you need the space, you need to open up. You can't have people downtown trying to climb over mountains of snow to get to their cars. So it's different down there.
Also, the vehicle capacity on the roads, you see a lot more vehicles on the number of these streets. So when you've got parked cars that are starting to hit into a lane, you see more car accidents, and that's one of the things we're trying to engineer away from.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Marks. I think it's getting late. I feel like we almost need a phase 2, but here are some things that is, what are we going to do to move forward? What have we learned from this? How can we be of help to you? And these are conversations that we need to have or continue to have because I think we are a resource. We know how hard you all worked. We know you have lost sleep over these storms. We do appreciate everything that the workers have done. And there are times where I think we need to have the plow drivers come in and tell us what they go through. And maybe we'll do a workshop where it's the people who are, their boots on the ground. Overtime. Well, maybe
Well, that's what we like the ride-alongs. I thought that was a good.
The ride-along is something I think every alder should do. I mean, I learned a lot by my driver, Dave, shout out to you. He was wonderful, but he's also been consistent with his route for the last 5 years. He was able to tell me where the manholes were. He's like, you're gonna see the plow bounce in 2 seconds because there's a manhole. He knew every inch of that roadway. And I asked him about the training that they receive. He explained it. he explained all the functions of the truck, et cetera, et cetera. So, and the challenges that the plow drivers face when they go around. And you have whiteout conditions as well, which it's dangerous for the plow drivers to keep going around. So now you have snow. Anyway, all of this, I think every alder should, I recommend it. It was eye-opening for me. I learned a lot. But, with that being said, we still have a lot of work to do. This is New England. We do get snowstorms. We've been lucky in the last few years, knock on wood. But we had 2 in a row and very, very cold conditions. We have to prepare for this, no matter if we have no snow all winter or the snowstorms we had this winter. So we have to be prepared. And I think that was even the purpose here. Also, post-storm, I saw testimony from someone that mentioned the snow being dropped at the park, East Shore Park. They're concerned that now with the snow that's starting to melt, they're seeing debris, even cones, et cetera. So we need a plan, if there isn't one in place, on the cleanup for when the snow melts where we dumped it.
We've already talked about it.
Okay.
That's why it's so important that we avoid the dumping of the water.
Yeah.
Right, so that's all factors.
And that's, understandable. Also, there's still no parking signs that are up that are not valid. We need to take any parking signs, no parking signs down that have
Can
been
you tell us
posted.
if you see those, because we had our team drive around today, but if you see any, can you just flag that for us?
I've
Thank you.
also been reporting to.
Yeah, the mayor sent.
But
us
here's the
something.
deal. Once they go up, somebody has to come around and take them down when we're done, because it's creating a lot of confusion with our residents. And then it's the boy who cried wolf. They're gonna say, well, that sign's been up for X amount of weeks, so I'm just gonna park here. And that leads me to enforcement. We are ticketing the cars that get towed, but we are not ticketing the cars that are in violation of the ban. We need to change that. Because now this message is gonna get out and no one is gonna move their car.
I'm a person who likes to ask questions and likes to ask the why. So I'm more than happy to look into that. And if it's one thing everyone should learn about me, I love ticketing and towing. I absolutely love ticketing now. So we can definitely look into if that seems pretty simple. As long as there's not a pile of snow on the ticket.
There was one year, I want to say it was that 6 years ago that we keep referencing. We had 4 or 5 6-inch storms in the year, and we didn't go into that nuance, but generally 6 inches is that trigger where we consider a ban. So people got into that muscle memory, and we were able to vary the streets where we were doing enforcement, and we had a number of people have that very complaint. I've never had a ticket before. It's like, well, yeah. Here's the thing. Any one of you could get a ticket for this any given day. And it all depends on how cars are parked, which streets, the headache for DPW, et cetera.
But I think that's a really good takeaway for us, is just looking into why we can't still ticket people for violating the ban that's in place. So that is well received.
Because that was news to me. I thought everyone got ticketed, and
they may still have a ticket coming in the mail, so don't talk too loud on this camera.
Okay. We all heard it from our TTMP director. Okay, I don't want to dwell. I'm going to ask colleagues. Oh, yes.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify something I said to Alder Smith. When I talk about the 70 and the 30% is where had to come back to do something once school had started. It's not that they necessarily, and sometimes it's small things. It's this doorway wasn't cleared, or that way. That's what I refer to as 70% ready to go out the door from Bell. And there's sometimes we have to go back. And again, that varies from minor to major. But if we only talk about the major, we're closer to about 10 to 15%, where something had to be done clean. Just wanted to clarify.
Thank you, Dr. White.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna ask colleagues and extend it to the whole board. If there are questions, to maybe send them to our chief administrative officer. I think we have a lot of answers, but it's getting late, and I'm sure you're all tired too. I appreciate you all being here. We have better clarification and understanding of how the system works. We have to make sure that everyone is responsible for a snowstorm, residents included. They need to sign up for messaging in order to prevent being ticketed and towed, et cetera, and understand how the whole process works. So thank you for explaining it all. And just one thing, all boots on the ground. It doesn't matter if it's Parks, DPW, Board of Ed, we need everybody on the ground during these storms, and you could figure out your grievances afterwards, but it's important. I know, I said the wrong word. No, but look, if it's a state emergency, all boots need to be on the ground, including us.
They were. All right. They definitely were.
It's just a general comment. So again, thank you very much for being here tonight, and stay safe and pray for no more storms. Yes.
I'll just make the suggestion that if the committee has any questions, that they send them to me by
yes.
March 13th, so I can organize them, get rid of duplicates, and then I'll forward them.
Oh, perfect. Yes, thank you. Good point. Thanks for that. So scratch that. Do not send them to our CAO. Send them to Ms. Mesa. Okay, thank you. At this point, we do have one resident that has been very, very patient. Mr. Strickland, you can come up as soon as we clear the table.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Come on up, sir. You've been very patient. I know there were other people that were hoping to testify. I could probably tell you their situation, which had to do with being a prisoner of their home because the cars were too close to their driveway and a car parked behind, no one could get out of the driveway. Have a seat. And for the record, state your name and address, please. And thank you so much for your patience.
Yes, thank you.
It was very educational. My name is Mark Strickland. I currently live in 87 Nash Street, New Haven. I had a career in disaster management, so I get it that things happen. I went from boots on the ground to also being supervisor of mutual aid communication centers. So what I saw here, and I was hoping that everyone would stay, but you had roughly 9 departments. I had lost track of assistants, but my question was a clear chain of command. The way I follow is the National Incident Management System, which what government agencies follow, which means you have from the bottom all the way to Justin Ehrlicher a chain of command, which if is not available to John Q. Public, should be available to the alders, so that when I call in and say that our 2-lane roads in East Rock, or I'm forced to play a game of chicken every time I go to the grocery store or leave because it's a 1-lane road that's been plowed, to the video I sent to my alder, Carolyn Smith, of my 1-way street, which I have a Jeep Cherokee. It's not a huge vehicle. And on the video, you see I have less than 3 inches on each side of my vehicle trying to drive to my home. I also wanted to agree with giving out tickets immediately. I think that works. I'm only going to count what I call, I guess there was Storm B, Storm Brian. I'm only going to count that one because it was unprecedented, the second batch of snow. But, with the cars not being towed or ticketed at all, it made it near impossible to clear it until nature took its course and melted it 4 weeks later. Even the second storm, I forgot what they called it, I'll say Storm C. I give credit that notices were put out, people knocked on the doors, and I think 1 or 2 cars were towed from my block. But all the cars stayed off that side the entire time until they were forced to get their cars out from the school. We were just plowed the center. And I called, but you don't know where you are on the queue. You don't know what's being done. I would recommend first the chain of command that you guys, if the person you're supposed to talk to doesn't resolve the issue, doesn't get back to you, there should be a person to talk to them. So eventually you get to somebody that is going to give you an answer right away. I also would recommend, and I know there's budget constraints, so I'm not going to mention manpower or equipment, but at least some type of online queue. So you know that your complaint was put in. You know, maybe you got 40 people ahead of you, but at least you know what's going on. You know, someone listened to you. You know, it hopefully will be addressed at some point. Basically, that's about it. So I wanted to thank you for having this workshop. I wanted to thank all the head of the agencies for showing up here and taking time out of their full day to explain everything. And thank you for hearing my thoughts on this matter. And please feel free to share those videos so people know that I was telling you. Okay.
We believe you.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for your patience, and thank you for your ideas. Because to criticize is one thing, but constructive criticism is important.
Good.
So thank you.
I'm glad it was taken in that direction. That's what I was hoping.
No, thank you very much.
All
Thank you for being here. Good night.
Take care.
Okay, so committee members, we voted on our items. We had our workshop. If there are any, we have public testimony, and at this point, we need to close that public testimony. So do I hear a motion to close? Wait, is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak on this item? Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? Please come forward. If there's anyone from the public, please come forward. Okay. No one on Zoom, right? Okay. Do I hear a motion to close the public portion of this meeting?
So move, Madam Chair.
Second.
Public portion has been moved and seconded. All in favor of closing the public portion, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The ayes have it. Public portion is closed.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. A motion to adjourn has been made and seconded. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you for putting that on. Thank you for holding the workshop.
So Director Bland.
See you. Huh? Uh-oh. I shouldn't be pressing.
I just want to make sure we're not on.
I think we're still, yeah, we're still.
Probably not. I think you closed them. Where's it go?
Maybe we should just close out of everything.
Let me see if it's that
This
corner. No, over here.
Thank you for coming in the meeting.
Oh,
Yeah, I had to go to a leak dinner and then I came back after and I was like,
They're still going. Oh my God.
Is there a way to like swipe out the whole thing?
There's supposed to be a button down here. Oh,
We can close it?
Usually it's after, but this should have been an exception.
Martine. What's this? Wait, down here.
there it is.